Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you out to our City Council meeting this evening. We appreciate all of you in attendance. We'll get started on our agenda with an opening that'll be provided by Council Member Snell, after which Council Member Susan Lee will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our kind Heavenly Father, we humbly bow our heads before Thee this evening and express the gratitude that we feel for the opportunity to gather this evening to conduct business in the city of Kaysville. We are grateful to live in this free land and are grateful to live in this wonderful community surrounded by wonderful people. We are grateful, Heavenly Father, for Thy many blessings upon us. We're grateful for the moisture that we are receiving, and we pray for Thy protection upon our community during this storm, that no harm or injury will come upon our community, and that any damage that is done will be handled appropriately. We are grateful again, Father, for the blessings of living in this area, and pray that as we conduct the business of the city tonight, that we may do so professionally, with a spirit of community and helpfulness, and with a hand of friendship. We love Thee, and we say these things humbly in the sacred name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Snell, Councilmember Lee, for participating in our opening. Before we move to our next item, we'll have introductions. My name is Steve Hyatt, and I serve as the mayor of Kaysville City.
Jay Garn, City Council.
Dave Adams.
Susan Lee, City Council.
Chris Snell, City Council.
Larry Page, City Council.
John Thacker, City Manager.
Maria Devereaux, City Recorder.
Dean Story, Finance Director.
Andy Thompson, Engineer.
Ryan Judd, IT.
Thank you very much. That takes care of our opening. The next item on our agenda is presentation on using data to understand more than one unit per building structures in Kaysville. Devin Smith.
Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My presentation is more focused on using data in general to more effectively make government decisions. While a discussion around multi-unit housing perpetuated or highlighted the possible opportunity that we have. It's really more of a general discussion. And I want to state up front that the intent isn't to highlight inadequacies, but I'm here in a spirit of highlighting a possible opportunity and collaboration. Having said that, we'll move forward, Andy. If you don't mind pulling up that presentation. He's going to be the clicker for me tonight. Right. What I'd first like to talk about is, if you go to the next slide, is just achieving data balance. Through experience, I've seen in organizations where they're too heavy on wanting to use data to make informed decisions. And I've also had experiences where no data is used and decisions are made. So I'd like to highlight those examples with two contrasting examples. So in my employment, we were making decisions related to our operations in 14 regions around the world. And as the team I was working with, we all brought together our ideas and things we needed to do. We brought together our own perceptions and biases to understand the problem and to make recommendations. As we were doing that, our boss gave us some counsel. He said, let's assume we are wrong until data proves us otherwise. And I thought that was interesting, that he was taking the standpoint that our perceptions and biases may make so the decisions that we make and the feelings we have aren't exactly accurate or wouldn't be the best thing to do. Now, we move forward under this assumption, under this process, and while it was good and helped make very informed decisions, it was very cumbersome as well. You can imagine every step you have to take, having to provide data to prove that that's what you should do. Okay, and so it was difficult to manage that way. The other example is actually an example from Planning Commission not too long ago. A comment was made that said, "I haven't seen any data that says I am wrong." And if you see this in context, there was also no data to prove that the individual's viewpoint was right either. And so this is an opposite example of the first one, where it was, I'm going to make a step forward because I don't have any data and there's nothing to prove that I'm wrong. So it's saying that my perceptions and biases, I feel so strongly about them that they're correct. Well, both these examples highlight the two extremes. And really what I believe and what I felt and what I've experienced is that it's best to obtain a balance between those two extremes, to be providing relevant data that helps make informed decisions. The right amount and the availability of data so we can have it quickly and in a timely manner to be able to use it and move forward, so that we know that when we're making decisions, we're making the best decision or the most informed decision with the information that's reasonable to obtain. So with that, how do we achieve that balance? So my experience is that we achieve it by defining and maintaining key metrics based on the organization's high-level goals and objectives. In the organization that I work at, we have high-level goals and objectives we know we're trying to achieve. Well, through experience, we've learned we can't obtain data for every step we're going to make. So we've looked and we've identified three very critical high-level goals and objectives, and we have data points around those three items. And we've developed and we maintain that data so that as we're making decisions, we could use that data. And we found that the vast majority of our decisions, if we use that specific data, we're making much more informed decisions, and it helps us with the majority of decisions. So how does that apply to Kaysville City? Well, Kaysville has a general plan, and it highlights goals, policies, and objectives for how we make decisions within the city and how we want the city to develop and grow over a period of time. Obtaining key metrics based on the general plan's goals and objectives, it will provide some benefits for us. The first of which is it will provide the most relevant decision-making data is available. Make sure that data is available for us to use. So if we define it and maintain it up front, we know the type of decisions we're going to be making on a consistent basis. If we have that available to us, it'll be there, and we won't have to dig for it every time. We'll make more informed decisions. There'll be transparency to citizens, and quite frankly, accountability as well to align with the general plan. Now, and fourth, it will monitor the general plan alignment over time. Now, it's important to realize that the general plan isn't meant to be, you have to follow it every time and do exactly. It's a guideline. It's a general plan. It's not meant to be something that dictates every decision, but it's a guideline to use. Isolated decisions may not appear to be in line with the general plan, but over periods of time, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years, a series of decisions, we should see that they're aligned with the general plan. Otherwise, it wouldn't be effective or important to have a general plan. So here's an example from our general plan. This is from the land use section. It says the majority of housing should be 1 unit per structure. About 10% of the housing should be more than 1 unit per structure. Multiple unit housing should consist mostly of duplexes and some 3 to 6 unit structures dispersed throughout the city. So example from the other night in Planning Commission, as we were talking about this 10% figure, we really didn't have a clear understanding of what our figure was. Andy provided, and his team provided some rough figures, but we weren't confident as we discussed it. We weren't confident that the data reflected the definition that's within our general plan, and so we weren't exactly sure or confident that the data was accurate, that was being used. And so possible metrics for this would be the percentage of housing units in more than 1 per unit structure buildings. And another example would be a heat map showing the dispersion of housing units in more than 1 per unit per structure buildings throughout the city, as it calls for dispersion. A heat map being just a way to visually show data. So that's an example of how this could be leveraged and used as the City Council and Planning Commission are making decisions associated with items that relate to this section of the general plan. So my recommendation tonight is that Kaysville City define and maintain and use key metrics relevant to the goals and objectives outlined in the general plan. And how I'd propose that this happen is that the City Council commission a small group with a representative from city administration, government, and the community to do the following. The first would be to propose standard key metrics based on general plan goals and objectives, including costs to develop and maintain the metrics. We need to be honest. There would be a cost to develop and maintain these, and at some point those costs are going to be too high to develop or maintain it. So we need to understand that. So if that was done and key metrics were agreed upon, then this group would be responsible to advocate the ongoing use of standard key metrics in the government making decision process. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those for you, but I invite you to consider this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
I don't have a question, but just a brief comment that being a sort of metrics guy, I would be all for having that. I think even when I was serving on the Planning Commission, there's so many times when we look at the general plan and say it's 10%, well, where are they? Well, I know anecdotally that there's more high density up by the women's shelter in that area of town, and I know that there's some duplexes in this area of town, but I really don't have good feeling for where it is, and I think it'd be very helpful in decision-making process to have a heat map or have, a little more data.
Point, thank you.
Yeah. I think that would be very helpful in making those decisions and to help realign as so often, well, I shouldn't say often, but on a somewhat frequent basis, the general plan gets revisited. And when that happens, to allow the metrics to kind of guide that process. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Devin.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is call to the public. This is the time in our city council meeting when we open the microphone to any of you in attendance that would like to address the city council. Our agenda items this evening do not have any public hearings associated with them, so if you wanted to address the city council, this would be your opportunity to do so. We do ask that you keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Our city recorder does keep track of time, so when you hear a subtle beeping up front, that's an indication that your 3 minutes has expired. We'd ask you to wrap up your comments. So with that introduction, we'll start call to the public.
Mayor Hyatt, members of the City Council, my name is Mark Robinson, and I'm a resident of Kaysville City. I've had the opportunity to meet with many of you one-on-one to discuss your goals and strategies for the betterment of Kaysville City. I am deeply impressed with the ideas, strengths, and experience each of you bring to the table. I am excited to see these ideas formalized and put into new policies and procedures to help build a better city to live in. Unfortunately, those ideas and goals are mostly taking a back seat due to the conduct of Councilman Adams. Councilman Adams' conduct in council meetings, email, social media, and personal interactions with many are disrespectful, inappropriate, and unbecoming a civil human being, let alone a member of the Kaysville City Council. Councilman Adams claims there is widespread corruption within our city government and its departments. On more than one occasion, Councilman Adams has stated, quote, "If you only knew what I knew," end quote. It has become, quote, the boy who has cried wolf. Within the last month, it is my understanding that Councilman Adams has had a scheduled appointment with an investigator with the Davis County Prosecutor's Office to divulge the information regarding the corruption. Mr. Adams was a no-show to that meeting. Councilman Adams, the time is now for you to lay on the table your findings and show us the wolf. If there is corruption, hand over your findings to proper law enforcement as to not tamper with or destroy critical information. I strongly urge the City Council to take action to remedy this issue caused by Councilman Adams' conduct. Each of you have been personally subject to Councilman Adams' badgering, belittling, and outright threatenings. You will notice in the back of the room tonight is Chief Oberg. Why is Chief Oberg here, you may ask? He is here due to an incident that occurred a few weeks ago after a city council meeting. Councilman Adams left the city hall to hide in the bushes outside City Hall. As Mayor Hyatt and Councilman Snell made their way to their vehicles, Councilman Adams emerged from the bushes to confront and verbally berate both men. This conduct is not only bizarre in nature, but dangerous and inappropriate behavior of anyone, especially a member of the City Council. Sadly, earlier this week, a business owner in Kaysville made a comment about a post on Facebook. Councilman Adams did not like what he said and made comments directly to this business owner, stating that his, meaning Councilman Adams, schedule just became too busy to help this business owner with an issue they were trying to resolve. It wasn't until this business owner profusely apologized for his comments on Facebook, which were not out of line, by the way, did Councilman Adams cease to attack this business owner. Do we want our current business owners and those who are considering opening a business within our city, who create a huge tax base for us, to be subject to the threats from our very city council?
Thank you so much, Mark.
Hey, Mark, I appreciate that. And in lieu of the open format we've kind of been becoming as a council, I'd like to address that. Widespread corruption, I'm not sure where that's documented. Documented where I've said that.
Multiple times.
If you'd allow me to go out in my Jeep and get my files, and this council would allow me the room, and if you want me to get Sean Reyes and Troy Rawlings on the phone and get their permission, I have done what I've been ordered to do by this council. I have been to Troy Rawlings. There is no missed meeting, sir. I have been in contact with them today. Leo Lucy, Spencer Austin, the chief investigator for the state of Utah Attorney General, and the chief deputy marshal. I have emailed them today. You are provoking something you don't want to provoke. You are provoking private meeting content.
Chief Oberg,
Tony
Chief Oberg,
Leon,
I am being
Mr.
threatened by a
Robinson.
city council member.
Mr. Robinson.
Chief Oberg, I'm being threatened by a city council member.
Mr. Robinson.
He has told me he doesn't, that I don't want to go down this road.
Hang on for 1 second, Dave. Mr.
Yeah,
Robinson.
Mayor, do you want to let him open up the private meeting stuff?
You've had your opportunity to address. Councilmember Adams is going to respond, but I need you to keep your composure, please. Thank you.
Is it possible that Facebook is taken out of context? Facebook, is there anyone in here who considers Facebook, any God-fearing woman or man in here who considers Facebook gospel? Is it possible that as comments go along in Facebook that they get intertwined and intermingled? There's a specific one that you pointed out in your email to me, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the man who sent me the email. Originally his name was not on it. I have no idea who you are, sir. It's nice to meet you. That's definitely, I respect your opinion on that. I'm sure you'll be at the mic in a moment. Hiding in the bushes. Okay. April 21st, City Council meeting. I left this room and I spoke with many people in the parking lot. That rolled into 12:30 at night. I did not have my keys to the building. I desperately had to go to the bathroom, if you really want to know. I went over to the old folks' home, or whatever the rest home over here, to try and use their restroom. Upon coming back, I came back through this area over here where the shed is, and yes, these two gentlemen were in the parking lot. Do you two gentlemen care to divulge to them what was the topic of your conversation? Who was the subject of your conversation?
Many individuals.
Was I?
Yes.
What was the private meeting about with John Thacker and you two till 1 in the morning?
Honestly?
Yes.
We were getting
It's not a private meeting. It's not a sealed meeting.
He was giving us an update on the status of our parks director's wife who was ill.
And so your conversations in the parking lot, was that a continuation about Mr. Van Scarfield?
Some of it, yes.
And did it involve me?
Our conversations?
Yeah.
Yes, you came up as a topic.
Okay. What did you have to say about me?
I don't recall the details, Dave, but it was about your conduct in some of our meetings.
That's great. Thanks for being open about that. Tony, are you out there? Yeah, I'm here. Hey, are we? Do you hate me?
No.
I mean, what's your opinion? Tony's the son of Orlando's owner. No, this isn't how it works. This isn't normal. But, I mean, he's referring to you, and
If you want to invite Tony to speak, he'll need to come to the microphone and identify himself for the record.
And it's up to you, Tony. Well, do you mind responding to what he's saying about our exchange on Facebook? I know I've met Tony along the campaign trail, by the way.
I'll get pulled into this, sure. I posted on Facebook at 1:30 in the morning. So, yes, what would you like to talk about?
Tony, what is your name, your full name?
Tony Lujan, Anthony Lujan. But again, we're spending our energy on some stuff that I think is ridiculous. Can I say that to begin with?
Are you aiming that at me?
No, I'm aiming at this whole conversation. I posted on Facebook so we can talk about my parking issue. It's costing me $5,000 a month.
Now
That's what
we're
I
getting
care
somewhere.
about. That's what I care about. That's what I came to talk about. Period. I mean, whatever's going on with you guys can happen on your own time. That's all I gotta say.
I'm just rebuttaling, Tony. I think I have a right to do that.
I don't want to be. Okay, go ahead. What do you want me to tell you?
No, you're good.
Okay.
But are you offended? Are you upset with me?
Not in the
We
slightest.
talked?
Not
Thanks.
in the slightest.
There we go. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Sorry, Tony.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, hey, you know what? I mean, whatever you want to do here, Mark. I mean,
Dave, this has absolutely nothing to do with Orlando's. What this has to do with is the way you act and treat people. This is just one incident. It
Yeah.
has absolutely nothing to do with Orlando's. It's how you reacted.
Mr. Robbins.
what
to
is
a
it you
business
want,
owner.
Mark?
Mr. Robbins, let me just ask this question. Your opportunity without being on the agenda has expired. If the council would like to yield you more time, which I'm not sure is going to be beneficial tonight, otherwise I would recommend that we.
There's no meeting with Mr. John Herndon that I have missed. I'd like to ask you, where are you getting that information? Have you spoken with Troy Rawlings yourself? Mayor, would you give him permission to answer that?
If you'd like to answer the question, sure.
I have my information just as you do. Thank you.
Sounds good. Hey, you know what? If anybody's going to say there's not a bit of a division in town, clean your glasses off. There's been a division for a long time. I'm not here to destroy Kaysville. I'm not here to destroy you. I have no idea who you are. I do recall you mocking me back in April in the city council meeting. You were sitting right over there. I remember that. And I tried to reach out to you afterwards, but you were gone. That was the night that you claim I hid in the bushes. Okay? The conversations there were about me, sir. I heard them. And it's fine. You know what? I'm glad. Look at this room. 50-50 of you may love me, 50 may hate me. That's fine. But look how many people are here tonight. I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to see people getting more involved. I don't know if I'm necessarily at liberty to discuss. I'd love to. Absolutely love to. I've been around I got activated into what I'm doing 5 years ago, Mark. I'd love to tell you my story. Councilmember Snell has said to me, although, yeah, he and I, are we best of friends? No, we're not. And that's what makes a council. Do you want us all to think alike? But Chris, upon telling him my story, he said, if that really did happen to you, which I have a brief on it now that I'd love to show you, Chris, that it did. Okay? I'm not here to get anything from you folks. If you don't like Mr. Shane Scott back there, voice your opinion. If you don't want a new city manager, just change around here, voice your opinion, for crying out loud. I'm not going to hold back and censure you like you want to do to me. I'll allow you to act how you want to act. I'd love to hear you if you want to go on for an hour. I don't have a problem with that. And I'm not going to tell you how to act, Mark. Please don't tell me.
Thank you. I would recommend, I do feel like I need to at least address one issue, and that is why Chief Oberg is here. Since we hired the chief, he's attended every city council meeting long before Councilmember Adams was ever elected to the city council. For anyone that wonders if there's a reason why the chief is here, I feel like we at least need to clarify that. He's been attending for a couple of years now, pretty much every meeting since he was hired as the chief, and I just, for fear we misinterpret the environment, I feel like that needs to be clarified.
I mean,
Councilmember Adams, I would recommend maybe moving on to the next call, but I also feel like I want you to have the.
I want to ask
feel
Mark
like
a
you have
question.
the opportunity
I
to.
want to just throw it out there, because this doesn't really pertain to the last 5 years of what I've been about. I'll start with a comment quickly. The head investigator for the Department of Professional Licensing down in Salt Lake is the one who actually suggested that I run for city council. After going through some things with him, he says the only way you're going to ever fix this will be to run for city council. And the other one is, you know, I'm going to offend some. This is in the past, okay? But there's a trend. When we have a pile of copper, okay, and there's some power guys in here, this has nothing to do with them. But when we have a pile of copper hanging out down in, you know, scrap copper, do you think for one moment it's possible that doesn't make it back to the taxpayer, to the budgets? You take it to a scrapyard, you pick up a check. Mark, we're not perfect here in town. No one is. I'm not, neither are you. Neither is anyone on the payroll or anyone on this panel. All I know is when you allow a natural man, and we're all exposed to it, the opportunity becomes so overly complacent with no checks and balances. You saw me champion down a vehicle policy. We have, matter of fact, had a department head who did receive a DUI in Layton. It's a matter of fact. I'm a blue-collar individual. I have been so since I was 10 years old, Mark. I'm not here mad at you. I'd like to explain some things to you. Blue-collar people don't talk to white-collar people the same way they talk to blue-collar people. From the moment I was 10 years old, I've had a shovel in my hand working for my father. A lot of people confide in me things. Okay, I'm here to champion for the little guy. I'm not the jerk you think I am. You have no idea who I am. You don't know me. I've suggested that all of you, come down to my office. I'm more than welcome. I know, you don't want it, whatever you feel, but you're welcome to.
Councilmember Adams, I would, if you're okay with it, I would recommend that we continue with call to the public. Any of the council members that want to maybe keep track of the things that you'd like to address when we've finished call to the public, then we'll yield some time to the council as a body. But instead of getting into a back and forth debate, why don't we'll stick to the 3 minutes as we've indicated, and keep track of anything that you want to address when we're done with call to the public, and then we can decide if further action is necessary. Further discussion or action is necessary.
My name is David Robinson, not Mark Robinson. You've attributed to him some of my communications to you and members of the council. Again, you've got it wrong. I have a presentation that I was going to make that I will not. I will not subject myself to the abuse of him, where I make a statement, you limit me to 3 minutes in what I may say, and then he goes wild. I will not. I sent to each member of the council an issue last Saturday where Mr. Adams was involved in an email threat to the wife of a Kaysville City fireman. When I looked at that, I was offended. Jerry Eggington is a friend of mine, and I consider his actions to be inappropriate and unprofessional as a city councilman in Kaysville City. I have asked for the city council to consider censure. When I said that word to Mr. Adams, it's clear from his response. He confused censure with censor because he came back and said somebody is trying to silence him. You have a problem with this council in that you have not defined any rules of conduct for this council. The Utah Code and the municipal code, both locally and at the state level, provide you the opportunity to make definitions of unprofessional conduct. You have not done so. You are now faced with the task of dealing with his behavior, and you have no standard upon which to measure his behavior. I know that some have considered obtaining documents from other cities and government organizations who have such. I commend you for doing that. But I suggest, and I will provide you tonight, a copy of the statutes and municipal provisions that provide you with the opportunity to establish those standards and call for you to do so quickly, that you may bring this wild horse under control. Thank you.
Sir, would we be here if there weren't wild horses in American history? And staff conduct on Facebook, are you okay with me being called the jackass city councilman by staff and the councilman from hell? I'm asking, is that okay?
Gentlemen.
That was your communication.
You're taking it out of context. It was on Facebook.
Councilman Adams, will you wait until the end of the public comment? Councilman Adams, please.
Hazel Parrish. Thank you, Dave. You're a breath of fresh air. I grew up and was raised by a mother that was Ivy Bishop Harvey, and she was always considered a sharp-tongued person. Her brother, Lloyd Bishop, was a sharp-tongued person, but you always knew where you stood with them, always. Everything was right out front. I appreciate that everything you do is right out front. You're not playing games with us. You're not trying to be politically correct. You're not trying to make friends with enemies that are doing you bad. You're just direct, and you've done so much already. I really, really appreciate, and I want you to know that I'm not the only one. There's lots of others that talk to me all the time, and they're very, very upset. Just today, I had several people call me about the Facebook deal and how upset they were at this continuation of nastiness towards a certain person, and you were defending that person, and then they got on you. I don't know what people expect when, you know, somebody tears down somebody and then they think you should just sit there and take it. That's not right. And thank you, Dave. You don't just sit there and take it. You say what you please. You know, we all say things, and boy, every one of you know I've had a temper and blown up at times. You, Steve, you've been the brunt of it several times. And maybe that's not right. And maybe we don't always use the calm, cool, direct approach. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person if you get emotional about something and passionate about something. And I'm really tired of all these other people that have to have all sweet talk and be so nice all the time, and I'm running out of time, and you know I didn't plan this, and so this is why I'm rambling, and I'm sorry about that. I don't mean to ramble, but I appreciate you, and many others do too, and you just keep it up. Don't let these people stop you, please. Thank you.
My name is Laurie Cragen, and I have lived in Kaysville for 28 years now. First, may I welcome Mr. Scott and his family, and hope he finds Kaysville as enjoyable to call home as I have. I am a wife, a mother, a grandma, who up until this point was content to sit back and let others be involved in the happenings of our little town. I thought that others would stand up for my interest and keep Kaysville the town that so many of us hold dear to our hearts. With the events that have happened in the public forum as of late, it has shown me that it is my duty as a citizen to bring about a degree of civility to this community. I have felt compelled to become involved because of the injustices and false accusations that have become known to me. The kind of dialogue that has been happening in the public forum between Councilman Adams and residents has got to stop now. Mr. Thacker has served as our city manager for many years, and for that I offer him my thanks. Our city has flourished and is envied by many. He must be doing a good job all these years, or it wouldn't be so. There is a small minority that have accused him and others in our city of corruption and mismanagement. I do not believe this to be the case. This is not good for any of us, and in fact tears at the fibers that make our city great. I believe that as an elected city council by the people of Kaysville, you have a great responsibility and accountability to be our representatives. Your conduct must be above reproach in your actions, speech, and dealings with the public. Councilman Adams, as citizens, we have expressed many times that we are grateful that you are looking for ways to cut costs and watch out for our hard-earned tax dollars. However, your accusations of mismanagement, relentless abuse of Mr. Thacker and of other city workers in a public forum has got to stop. You have been asked to go to the county prosecutor with evidence of what you accuse him, and you did not. It is time to stop harassing Mr. Thacker. Mr. Thacker is retiring, plain and simple. It is not your doing. You are not king. Your constant bullying, demeaning, snide remarks, and lies in public forum are unbecoming to your position. You told me you are a Kaysville citizen first and a councilman second. I disagree. You are an elected servant first because you reside in Kaysville. There is a difference. Councilman Adams, I asked you once before 2 questions and I did not get an answer. Number 1, are you a bully or a leader? And number 2, what do you want your legacy to be as you serve the citizens of Kaysville? You cannot be a bully and a leader at the same time. It is ineffective. Only you can decide. I would ask that the council needs to draft a code of conduct, if you will, to hold Councilman Adams and others accountable for their actions. This cannot continue if we are to retain the sense of brotherhood we enjoy here in Kaysville. Please do something as a council to stop Councilman Adams from threatening, bullying, and demeaning our citizens.
Thank you.
Burst this bubble, but I'm not going to be talking about the topic, this recent topic. I have a couple questions.
Would you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please, Greg.
My name is Gregory Frank. I got on the website this evening and I noticed that the minutes haven't been posted since the March 31st meeting. The link is grayed out, so I can't get the minutes. So I was hoping that maybe we can get those updated. Response?
They need to be approved. We have minutes to be approved tonight.
Okay, but I'm talking about since March 31st, they're not. I mean, we've had several meetings since then.
We've had 2 meetings. I guess we've had 3. We weren't able to get minutes done. Is that right, Maria, from our last?
There was an April 13th meeting. That was a closed meeting, so there won't be minutes for them. And then I think the only ones that aren't on there are the April 21st. There's 2 of them, and then the May 5th. So I think that should bring us current tonight.
May 5th, yeah.
We held 3 meetings in March and skipped our first April meeting because most of us were going to be out of town. So we had just have the 1 meeting that wasn't ready for our last meeting.
Okay. The next question I have, I've been reviewing the budget and was wondering if it would be possible. There are transfer items in the budget, and there always has been, and I would like to know if the council or the staff would be willing to shed a little light on those transfers. In other words, show where the money comes from and where it goes to as part of that budget.
It's a great suggestion. Maybe if you'll coordinate with one of the council members when we have our work session a week from Saturday, we'll specifically ask for that to be discussed.
Okay. Because I would like, if that's agreeable, I would like to have that done before the public meeting on the 2nd, isn't it, June 2nd?
Right.
Okay.
And we're meeting on Saturday the 30th as a council, or 29th. 28th. Last Saturday.
But could I follow up with Dean or with the council on this issue to see if it's possible?
Yes, you can follow up with Dean directly, but maybe keep one of us in the loop as well would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other items for call to the public?
I'm Darrell McKinnon. I just wish to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for your service, but just want to say thanks to John for all you've done for many years and your great service to help make our city a wonderful place to be. I just want to say thank you, too, when we had the bad windstorm again. My neighborhood was hit pretty hard, and just thank all the city workers that came and cleaned up. We had a lot of work in our neighborhood to do to cut down limbs and haul things out, but we all appreciated what was done in our neighborhood, so thank you for taking care of that. And also I just want to thank my dear friend Vance Garfield for blessing all of us. What an awesome person and a dear friend he is. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Well, after the public comment, sure, we'll have you distribute them. Any other items for call to the public?
I would be remiss at this time of my life if I didn't stand and thank the city family, friends and neighbors for Texas, flowers, food, and money. I was overwhelmed, and my family, we don't know how to adequately say thanks. Okay. Pickleball is good. Pickleball, I had to switch, okay?
Changing gears.
If you've ever analyzed pickleball versus tennis, it's interesting. Tennis is a little bit more refined, quiet, subdued. I mean, you have your volleys and your rallies, and if there's a crowd, they're quiet. Pickleball is party hardy time, people having fun, and now I know that one day I will play pickleball, and I now know that if I do a good job with a double partner, you touch paddles, and that's cool. I've watched, and I've challenged Tammy Worston and Alan Worston. When I get better or good, I'm going to challenge them in cutthroat. So it's me against those two. That's why I used to play handball at BYU, cutthroat. I like to play against two people. The location that Park and Recreation came up with is the best location the city can have for those pickleball courts, and 8 is a good number. Cole, Chris, and I went out and surveyed 8 courts in 2 different parks in Ogden, and they don't take as much land as I thought. So I had the place where I thought, so Cole, Chris, and I went back to Barnes Park on the north side. I go, this is a good spot. And then our good parks director said, well, let me show you one other spot. We went over behind Egan Automotive, walked out on the ground, and I said, oh, this is even better. And that's why we recommended to the city council that that be the spot for pickleball courts. And I give my total support to the Worstons, who are a high-octane couple, you know, and I thrill of their enthusiasm to fundraise for these good courts. Pickleball is not a flash-in-the-pan sport. It is not. It is good. Item 3, okay? I got to turn my back on you, okay? Shane? Okay, right there. Are you sure you want me to do this in a public meeting? Sure. Daisy, in the 40s, not that I was there used to be musical telegrams, singing telegrams, okay? Shane?
We'll give Vance more time.
The guy that he is, the fun-loving guy he wanted me to sing to you. But the Tab Choir has rejected my applications 18 times to sing 3 Bolivian sisters when I tried to make a choir in Oruro, Bolivia as an LDS missionary. They said, Elder Garfield, your singing makes our ears ache. So I got washed out. Okay, so this is as if he, and girls, as if your father is singing but I'm going to read it, okay, because I don't sing. Okay. Okay, ready? Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, and I can't afford a carriage. But you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Okay, Shane, I did it. I fulfilled my first assignment from our new city manager on June 20th. Item last, John Thacker. I've had the privilege of working with the man with the highest sense of integrity I have ever met. No one has ever rivaled my father in my mind as far as integrity. A good old sugar beet farmer from Tremont. I have enjoyed, he has been my mentor, and I have the utmost respect. I am so proud of the city and the way he has managed his departments. The department heads are 110% behind him. 110. We always have, and we don't get the community going after him. Don't get it at all. I respect him in the utmost manner, and I'm sorry to see him leave, and I look forward to his remaining time getting assignments from him and completing them when he gets them from the city council to do. The city is a great city. I'm proud of it. I wouldn't want to work for any other city. Grass has never been greener for me in 33 years. And I wish, and I told Margaret Bruff this tonight, I wish I had been born and raised in Kaysville. I'm so proud of it. Okay, the corruption and crap, I don't see it. And I've been around a long time, and I've been involved with many things. John Thacker has never ramrodded any council, any mayor, any department head. Never. Most of the time, he sits and listens. When we've had heated discussions as department heads and all things going out of control, he just sits there and listens. And then when the dust settles, he goes, well, let me summarize. And he nails it. He nails what we as 7 department heads couldn't get together. He gets it. Thank you, John.
May I say one thing, Mayor? Your 33 years in Kaysville, Vance, is all the thanks you need to give to anyone.
Mark Robinson.
Mr. Robinson, you've had your opportunity to speak.
This is a different issue, Mayor. Thank you.
Even so.
Okay.
Unless the council, let me just give you a little background as why, before you sit down. Unless the council would like to yield you more time, there have been several times over my past 6.5 years, including some not-so-fun hearings, that we've had to draw the line somewhere. And it wouldn't seem right unless the council would like to yield you more time for me to make an exception tonight for you. So I'll defer to the council. Maybe you can just tell us what your topic is, and then I'm going to let the council determine.
Yes, I've done some research to help us with bidding of projects and to better that.
Let him air it out. We're here.
Love to hear it.
Just real quickly, I'm putting together some information. It was not all available to me today in order to get it ready, but I'm putting it together. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the website BidSync. It's a construction website where you can go and put the bids out there. I was concerned a few weeks ago when we were put out the chip seal bid and we went to the Davis County Clipper, the Standard Examiner, and the Deseret News. BidSync is used by over 200 municipalities in the state of Utah, and Kaysville City qualifies to piggyback on the Salt Lake City account, so it costs us absolutely $0 to put the bids out there. This is a site where contractors pay to get on to see what bids are available for work to be done. And I will get more information for the council, but I think it would be a great addition so that we make sure we don't come back with only one bid simply because maybe we weren't reaching the broad audience. So I will get that put together and presented at a later time.
Wonderful.
Hey,
Thank you.
Is it Mark? Sorry, I mean, I'm still,
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Mark. Hey, what do you do, man? What do you do for a living?
I'm in construction sales.
Are you? What sector, really?
Heavy equipment.
For who?
I'd rather not say.
Wheeler, Komatsu?
I'd rather not say.
I'm an excavation contractor. I
No,
mean,
you're not. Thank you.
You just summarized my campaign, sir. I don't understand.
Any other items for call to the public? Seeing none, we will close call to the public and move on to our next agenda item. As I mentioned before, I defer to
Can I amend the record?
I
did sell my company in December. I think that's what you're alluding to. I apologize for the verbiage being inaccurate there. I was an E100 contractor.
I know that, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson has something to distribute. If you'd like to hand it to the council, we'll circulate it around.
This is the background information that provides you with nothing to establish rules.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is introduction and appointment of city manager and approval of city manager appointment agreement. Before we introduce Mr. Scott, I could be wrong, but that might be the first time anyone has sang in a city council meeting, and I couldn't, and I have to say, I actually told Shane before the meeting, as when we were interviewing city managers, we asked them to come an hour early. There were 6 of them, and Vance gave them a tour of the city. And every single one of them came in and said how awesome Vance was and what a great job he did. And so Vance just saw Shane before our meeting started tonight. And I said to Shane, I said, I have publicly for 6 years said Vance is my favorite city employee. And you would think people would say, oh, that's awful. But every city employee always says, yeah, that's right. He should be. And I think it's pretty clear why tonight. So thank you, Vance, for that. And thank you for being who you are. With that, Mr. Scott, we have with us Mr. Shane Scott is going to be introduced as our city manager, and he has brought with him his wife Daisy and their 4 wonderful daughters. And before we get into the details, why don't we just have you? Let's see what you got.
Thanks.
Before we start.
I just gotta, Maria, make sure I'm under 3 minutes. I want to hear a beep here in a second.
You're on the agenda, so.
Okay, I can go on 3.
Sky's the limit.
I hope I don't go much over 3 for sure. But Vance, thank you so much. What I don't think Vance does know is I actually sang that song to my wife in our wedding reception.
Wow.
And it was my version was much worse than yours. You did a much better job.
Vance is in tune.
Yep, so I could sing along. We should do a duo. We should do that soon. But that's the kind of wonderful day we've had. I think that sums it up very well. As I brought my family here, and I'll introduce them just in a second, how amazing just this day has been between the council that I've been able to speak with, the staff I've been able to meet, and many of the residents, many of whom are here and have come up to me before the meeting. And I look forward to meeting each and every one of you if that's something you're interested in doing. I really appreciate that, and we have had a wonderful day, and that's because everybody's treated us with so much respect and love, and they don't even know us yet. So. I've teased a few people about I'm going to be leaving my current city, and many of them have said, oh, that's too bad. Well, good luck to you. You're leaving your family right here in our community, right? And I've had to say, no, I'm going to bring them with me. So my greatest asset in anything is my family, and I'd love to introduce them if you don't mind. My wife, Daisy.
And you're more than welcome to grab the microphone and face the audience since there's more of them. And
my wife, Daisy. She's originally from Logan. We met at Utah State University in college. Parley is my oldest child. She's 16. Claire is 14. Kate is 12. And Maggie is 9 and spoiled rotten. And like I said, they are obviously my most tremendous asset, and I'm grateful for them for being here today with me. I guess I would just leave you that I'm just full of excitement. I know I've said this to all of you before. I appreciate so much Mr. Thacker and his legacy here, and I'm just excited to pick up the ball where he's left it and run it forward for more yards, if I can use an analogy there. I'm excited to celebrate Councilman Snell's birthday next Saturday. I will be here with bells on at 7 a.m. I think that's when the birthday party starts, is that right? For that meeting, and we'll make sure we have to sing. We'll bring Vance in and have him do a happy birthday rendition. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's always a risk and a chance that any city council takes in bringing somebody in. And you've certainly done your due diligence, and I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the process you went through to do this, and it's what made me excited about the position. So thank you very much for your vote of confidence in any way. And I guess if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please do.
I think the council has had a good chance to review the applicants, and I think we all feel the same about what a great job you'll do. But maybe for those who may not know you as well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've had the opportunity to do in Parowan,
Yes.
The kind of departments you have,
Right.
how maybe they mirror Kaysville, and how you think why you think you'll do so well in this position.
Thank you. Yes, I am originally from St. George, but I have spent the last 6 years in Parowan City, which is in the southwest corner of the state, just an hour north of St. George. But last 6 years as city manager, and I guess one of the things I've said to several individuals, and even the media, one of the things that has really appealed to me about Kaysville is the community structure, and it feels like a larger version of my current community. We have a lot of similarities. The hometown feel, not only in our logo and other things, but just the way that people are treating each other is just, it just still feels like a small community. Kaysville has some of the similar departments. We have our own police force in Parowan. We have our own power company. We also are part of the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems, or UAMPS, which Kaysville is as well. So a lot of those issues are similar for our two communities, and things that I've been heavily involved with. And of course, I'm excited about continuing. You have a wonderful, beautiful cemetery. You're I think, is it 1850 when Kaysville was settled as a community, and Parowan was 1851. It feels like a very similar sentiment, I guess, in the community. And I've had other opportunities to leave Parowan before, and I chose not to do so. And I feel like this is just a really good fit. I don't know if I believe in destiny or anything like that, but I feel like things have just really come together for us. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Shane.
Anything I left out there, I should say?
Council, any questions you have? I know you all had the opportunity. Appreciate Shane. He's been here today, and I think met with 4 of the council members. Met with Councilmember Garn, and then Councilmember Adams, and then Councilmember Lee, and then Councilmember Page. And we've had the opportunity to chat over the weeks, and so we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Any additional questions from the council for Mr. Scott? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the same agenda item, but we'll count that as introduction.
I won't stand right here so you don't feel too much pressure to approve the contract. No. I don't want you to.
So we have a motion to table the contract until. All right. Council, you've had a chance to review a city manager employment agreement. I know this is one thing that the council was very anxious to get in place, and have had some opportunity to send a few drafts back and forth with Mr. Scott. Any discussions or questions about the final draft of the employment agreement? All right. In these circumstances, the mayor has the opportunity to vote in a hiring or firing of a city manager. I clarified that with the League of Cities and Towns attorney, and he said, well, yeah, you can, but if you've got a majority, it doesn't really matter anyway. So I'll wait until the end, just in case my vote doesn't matter, but I don't get to do it all that often, so I'll still cast one. So with that, I would welcome a motion either to table this, to deny it, or to approve it and appoint.
Mayor, I would make the motion that we approve the city manager employment contract with Shane Scott.
Second motion.
Yeah.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Snell and a second by Councilmember Adams for approval of the contract and to appoint Shane Scott as the city manager effective Well, I guess he's going to start effective January 20th. June. Yeah, that might, June 20th, but going to be involved in operations like our budget discussions and come up. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second as outlined. Any further discussion? Thank you. Mr. Garn, will you start a vote?
Aye.
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 And apparently not that it matters, aye. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Scott. Welcome to your family. We appreciate you being here with us this evening. I know Shane has been watching our meetings, and I would dare say did more homework and was very prepared for his both his initial interview and his interview before the City Council. I also know that they are driving back to Parowan tonight. So if I were in your shoes, I would be, do I leave early and send a bad signal, or do I get home before midnight? And as of right now, you won't, no matter what. So with that, we would just mention that Shane and his family are going to head back to Parowan this evening. And so if he happens to slip out here we won't hold that against you. We've already voted. So now you can turn your back to us and even leave the room for that.
Welcome, Shane.
Good to have you here.
And the girls.
That's right. Thank you. Next on our agenda is Whisper Creek amended subdivision preliminary and final plat at 670 East, 600 South, consisting of 3 lots combined into 2 lots. Mr. Thompson.
Whisper Creek is the subdivision down on South Main Street, just by Nichols Road and Burton Lane. It's highlighted on the map here to accommodate some of their buyers. Symphony Homes has requested to take 3 lots and combine it into 2 lots, creating the plat shown here. So you can see here, it's roughly the 3 lots on the private lane have been combined into 2 lots. Obviously, they comply with the zoning, and things fit very well together. It's been recommended by the Plan Commission for approval.
Thank you, Council. You have a staff report before you and the report from Mr. Thompson. Any questions about this amendment? Hearing none, I welcome a motion for approval of the amended subdivision.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve the preliminary and final plat of Whisper Creek amended subdivision at 670 East and 600 South.
I'll second that.
Thank you for a motion by Councilmember Garn and a second by Councilmember Lee for approval as outlined. Any further discussion? Mr. Adams, will you start a vote, please?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next on our agenda is adjustment of a common boundary with Farmington City at 1561 South Haight Creek Drive. Mr. Thompson.
I've had a request from property owner. This is Haight Creek Drive. City boundary runs along the creek. Mr. Clark owns the home here on property on the Farmington side. He also owns the 1 lot on the Kaysville side in the subdivision. He's owned that for some time, would now like to sell it, but since his home's here, he'd like to preserve a little open space behind his house and maintain the stream all on his property. In order to best accommodate that, he needs to do a boundary adjustment so that this property can be taken out of Kaysville and put into Farmington. Otherwise, it's a landlocked parcel within Kaysville city boundaries, which is not permitted. So tonight's action is the start of the process. It's very similar to annexation that we did a couple meetings ago. Tonight's action is to adopt the resolution indicating our intent to do the boundary adjustment with Farmington City. We then go through the process and it will come back to you in a few weeks for final approval.
Thank you. Council, any questions about this gift to Farmington?
I noticed you had on it, it says exchange. Now, do we get to pick what parcel we take from Farmington? I mean, can we have like Cabela's maybe? I was just wondering.
Just the Apple store.
We only get to exchange the boundary, not the property.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I figure if we're giving them something, they should give us something. Well, they probably won't go for that.
Thank you. That I'll welcome a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the adjustment of a common boundary with Farmington City at the noted address and get that process started.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Snell and a second by Councilmember
Page.
Yes, sorry, I was looking at my paper. I saw the applicant's name Clark, and then mine just went blank. I'm sorry. Motion by Councilmember Snell and second by Councilmember Page for the approval of the property for Mr. Clark. Any further discussion? Councilmember Lee, will you start a vote?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Next item on our agenda is award of contract for 2016 rail trail project consisting of fog coating of the rail trail in Kaysville.
I think most of you are aware of the rail trail that runs all the way through Kaysville on the west side, shown here. It's been in place for some time now. It's felt like it's time to do a little preventative maintenance. It's been determined that a fog coat is the best method to use at this point based on its condition. We've bid that out, advertised it appropriately. We received 2 bids. The low bidder after the bid tabulation was done was Advanced Paving at $24,373. The second bid was $25,278. So the bids were very close and in line with what we expected, and we'd recommend that we award the fog coat of the rail trail to Advanced Paving in the amount I mentioned.
Any concerns at all with advanced paving or past work with the city?
No, they've done other work in town, and we've been satisfied with their performance.
I just ask a quick question. Slurry seal, chip seal, fog coating.
Fog's a little bit less than a slurry. It's more or less a spray coat that kind of just rejuvenates the oil in the asphalt on the top layer.
Okay.
Is there a reason why only 2 bids came in?
No, we actually called several other contractors and invited them to participate. I think we were just a little late in the season getting this out. Many of their schedules were already full. And this is also a little bit of a small job for some of the bigger companies to, that's what we expect to happen.
And what do you anticipate for maintenance, or as far as closing the rail trail temporarily? And how much time do you expect to be down? And you providing a detour, or what are your
As
what
they
are the
do each
plans?
section, they'll close it. It only takes them it'll probably be less than a day that it actually has to be closed. You can move very quickly down the trail and apply the coat, and then it takes just a few hours to cure enough to be safe. If anybody violates the closed signs on each end, you can follow the black footprints to their home and find out who it was.
Thank you for that.
I note here that it's the trail as well as the couple of lengths of
The couple of
off
connections
trail.
near
The
the
connections.
junior high school that the city actually maintains and is responsible for are included.
Okay.
Is there any way that when we get the bid approved and they start, that we can put it on our Kaysville Facebook page and just inform the public in general?
We'll do what we can to make sure everybody's aware so that we don't have those black footprints I referred to.
And just by way of note, Cole Stevens, we are going to post it on the gates to the rail trail a week ahead of time, letting those that use it know. We'll do our very best to notify people, but it is an open access trail, so it is a little difficult, but we are going to do our best. So.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, I'd welcome a motion, a clear motion on the fog. Or just any motion's fine.
I'll move that we approve the bid for Advanced Paving to do the fog coating on the Kaysville portion of the rail trail.
Second. Oh.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Garn and a second by Councilmember Snell, I think, beat it in there. Any further discussion? Councilmember Snell, will you start a vote?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Next on our agenda is consideration of parking and striping options of Fairfield Road at Heritage Park.
You may recall that recently you approved a contract to do a chip seal on Fairfield Road. Seemed appropriate where we're doing a new surface to consider the striping along that path. You may also recall that you recently approved an active transportation plan that calls for various and assorted bicycle and pedestrian routes. One of those outlined in that document is to put a buffered bike lane on Fairfield Road. So we looked at those things. As we were doing that, the question arose as to how to accommodate parking near Heritage Park. As you look at this aerial photo, you can see cars parked not just in the parking lot, but up and down both sides of Fairfield. Question was asked, is there a way we can get more parking and safer parking to access the park and the features there? One of the primary concerns was with parallel parking, which is how it's been done now. The cars are parking on the east side, being forced for the children to cross the street to access the park. We asked our our consultant that did the active transportation plan to give us some concepts of what could be done there. He outlined 3 alternatives. First one would be to just do parallel parking as there is now. Gave us the widths and the specifications of what would need to be done, how it would fit on that road. It works quite well. You have the parallel parking on each side, the buffered bike lane, and then 2 traveled lanes in the middle. The benefit of this is there is more parking. The detriment is that you have cars parked on the far side of the road, requiring them to cross the road. They're not going to go to the corners and cross at a crosswalk. They're going to cross where they get out of the car. So concern with the safety of the pedestrians.
How many stalls in that scenario?
It's 49, I think. 24 on the west and 25 on the east, it says.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's on the thing there.
49
So
total.
49, yeah.
It would look somewhat like that in a cross-section. I've outlined 2 different samples, not necessarily to decide this. This is our standard parallel parking based on the handbook I looked at 22-foot stalls. Another alternative that was in the same book, you do the stalls at 18 feet and then you put an 8-foot buffer on each end of each pair, making it feel a little bit more like you have room to get in and out. I think generically just having striping there and designated where the stalls would go help with a lot of the concerns that come with parallel parking. The second alternative that was reviewed was just a typical angle parking. I believe this is done at 45-degree angle parking. Again, there's the 18-foot stall. With pull forward angle parking, they recommend a much larger buffer because of the blind spot coming in as you're backing out of your stall. So that's a 6-foot buffer, 5-foot buffer, and then a 5-foot bicycle lane. Again, that puts the buffer on the inside instead of the outside. And then the 2 travel lanes, and there's only room for a bike lane on the opposite side of the road and no parking. Obviously, the benefit is it puts all the parking on the park side of the road. We lose 2 or 3 stalls total, but they're all on the safe side of the road. The other drawback is it's not quite as safe for the bicycle lanes because the buffer's, on the outside instead of against the traffic as it was on the previous one. Again, just a quick section shot of what that would look like. Pretty standard, what we're used to seeing. Stalls down the side, you just pull straight in. It does offset the center line of the road. It would have to be tapered back at each end. The third option that was suggested to consider would be back-in angle parking. What this does is it's not too common in these parts, but it is becoming more common. The car comes forward, pulls past the stall, and then backs into it. What that does is that means when you're pulling out, you're pulling forward, and that blind spot is significantly reduced or gone to 0. Therefore, it only needs they're showing the bike lane against the parking because the sight distance is adequate, and then the 2-foot buffer, the travel lanes, the 2-foot buffer, and a bike lane on the other side. Again, the cars would pull into the park lane and then back into their stall. The concerns with this is,
Nobody does it?
are we smart enough to do it?
It's new.
It's fairly new. There's not a lot of places locally that I know of that have it. There are nationally places where it's been done.
Where is that at?
Lyle went on the internet and found photos of it. It's probably not in Utah.
Doesn't look like it's in.
There's a diagram that we can post on the board so people understand. There are a few concerns. One of them is people go on the opposite side of the road. Well, I can show you the concern. Not everybody understands what's going on. It makes it very simple for the people on the opposite lane to dive across and park head first in, reducing all the benefit. If it's done appropriately, it's deemed to be much safer. The other thing it does is as the doors open, it forces the kids backwards away from the street instead of going out and around the door towards the street. So those are the arguments in favor of it. We're here tonight to get a little directions so that we can determine which route we want to go, and then we can do full detailed
I'm all
plans of
about
what
being on the leading edge of things, but I think that's a little too leading edge for us. I'm thinking everybody probably feels that way, so like.
You see a lot of fence
Maybe-
makers.
maybe
I
next
actually
time we'll
like
see
Actually,
what-
don't,
Oh,
I
you
actually
do?
like
Yeah.
option 3.
All right.
best,
I
yeah.
do. I like the fact that it gives more room for the bicycle lanes. Having a bicycle lane where the parking is going forward parking, when they back up, they're backing up also into a more of a biking lane, even though you have to have a bigger blind spot in, the enlargement of the blind spot. But to me, it's more dangerous for the bicycle people who are in that lane and you're backing up.
Well, and here's my thinking. I know it's really new, but as I was thinking through it, and I agree with you, you're pulling out, you can see everything. That's the danger spot. Now, if you're parallel parking, it's the same issue, right? Because you're going to stop in the lane of traffic, and then you're going to have to make a much more complex maneuver to do a parallel park than you would to back straight into the, maybe that's just because it's easy for me because I have a big pole where I work, so I have to go back into my spot in order to open my door, so I'm used to it. But a 45 is much easier to pull into than if you have to make a 90-degree turn with the car. And so I was just thinking through it. Actually, although it's not there, but if you think of the actual mechanics of it, it actually works better. And the only concern I have is that when you go with that option, you're losing parking spaces. But I think that's overcome by the fact that I really worry about the safety of parallel parking on the opposite side of the street and then having kids and people coming across. So although it'd be nice to have more spots, I'd worry about safety with option 1. So.
No, go ahead. I actually agree with number 3. And it's just like when you first put in the new roundabout, it's the same thing. Everybody's confused, but then everybody loves it. I think this is the safest by far. And the thing that I really like is having separate bike lanes. I think that's just a lot safer. Even in section the number 2, that's still dangerous to have it, and who's going to say you're going to be able to keep the cars from parking over there anyway, where when you have it a dedicated lane, it makes a big difference.
And that's the other thing, to your point, in Salt Lake where they have the pull-in front ways, 45s, it's really hard. If you're like a little small economy car like mine and you've got a big truck that's right next to you, you can't see. You got to go almost into the lane of traffic before you can see what's coming. And that's the other factor too.
Well, and I think people are going to use that buffer zone to ride their bikes in, even though it's a buffer zone for the backup. So I think that would be more dangerous.
Well, the pull forward, the angle pull forward at a 45 has a 5-foot buffer lane, has a 5-foot bike lane, so you have 10 feet from the back of the car to the active lane of travel, where the back end has 6 foot of bike lane and 2 feet of buffer. So you have 8 feet of bike buffer space in the back end. So less in the back end than you have on the pull in. 2 feet less.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think it mitigated a little bit by the fact that you have almost perfect vision, though, when you're pulling forward out of the spot.
That's right.
That is a good point.
And in option number 2, that front pull-in, the bike lanes are next to the traffic. There's really no buffer between the bike lanes and the auto traffic. They're basically
You mean in
right next
the
to it.
back end?
No, in the front end.
Oh, the
Yeah,
front,
right,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that's what I
bikes
don't like.
are like right next to the cars.
Yeah.
No, there's 5-foot buffer, then a 5-foot buffer.
Here.
Yeah.
I mean, the bike lanes are the buffers there, basically, but they're right next to the lanes of traffic.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I see the difference between traffic and the cars.
Yeah,
Okay.
not the parking, the actual, traffic lanes.
I do think, Mayor, your point's a good one, though, if you went with the option 2, that extra buffer makes that backing out of the 45 easier. Because in a lot of places where they have the back out of the 45, like in Salt Lake, they have no buffer whatsoever, so you're pulling right out into the traffic.
Today, I parked on a 45-degree angle in downtown Salt Lake at the city county building. I had a league meeting down there and backed out onto 4th West, or 4th South. And it's 2 lanes in each direction, and really, and it was a little more interesting to back out, but someone stopped, they let me in. I didn't even realize it until we're having this discussion. So the backing out didn't seem as trouble. I guess my only concern with the pull forward and back in is just where else we're doing it anywhere. Sometimes that becomes the biggest, as you say, first time roundabouts came, people were like, I thought they just did those in Europe. And now they're pretty common here. But I would love to maybe not be the very first in Utah and ask our kids and families to say, hey, go along with this, but that's just me. We talked about this in a development meeting, and I recommend that it come to the council. I think staff's feeling was just the good old-fashioned parallel parking was most as what they preferred. I suggested it come here because I would like to see more of that parking on the park side of the road because no one's going to, we go back to the aerial. Let me rephrase, very few that park here against this wall are going to get out of their car, walk on the sidewalk down here to Second North, cross the street and come back, and
Yeah,
very
they're
few are
not
going to go
going
up to Crestwood. So most park here and then families dart across. So if we lose a few stalls by getting the parking on this side, just this would be the time to do it. That said, most of the traffic is coming this way. It seems that most is coming off Second North. My only other worry about the reversed angle parking is if we've got angle parking going this way, going to the northeast, you're not going to be able to come and it's going to be harder to make a wide angle to pull in. It's going to be very easy to pull in head first the wrong way and do it the wrong way.
It essentially makes it a one-way street for parking too, right? You have to circle around to.
It does. My point is I wonder if our reverse, our back-in parking is going to encourage more to do it the wrong way because the more likely lane of travel is very convenient.
Although if you think about
Sure,
the
easy to
dynamics
enforce.
if you think about maybe some people would do that. I think logically though, if you're pulling in forward into a 45 the wrong direction, you're thinking like, how am I going to get out of here when I pull out of that 45? I'm going to be in the opposing lane of traffic facing the wrong way.
Assuming you're thinking that far ahead, yes, you're right.
Parking spot.
Cole, do you have any thoughts on these? I know you talked about it, and
I would just also make a point that, so we're not confusing, we also have angled parking that's on First East right here by Kaysville Elementary and in front of the rec center, and it's pull-in forward angled parking. So if we have two different styles of parking within a block of each other, we're not opposed to, I guess, necessarily any one of them.
And I'm rethinking the backup because the park will probably be visited by a lot of teenagers, and I know how they back up. It's not safe, so.
Yeah, so it's a new thing. That's why our hesitation was either to do the pull-in angled or just keep it as parallel. Because of First East having parallel or front-end angled parking, to us made a little bit of sense to do that here. Also keep in mind that the parking lot is expanding with the storm drain project to that field that's to the west right there. But that won't be operational till later this fall. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I like the idea of having the parking all on the west side, just for the mere fact that you don't have to worry about all the people.
If you notice, all they do is they highlight the space rather than include it in the stall. So if you start at this
That's
line,
right, because they're
the
18
same,
instead of 22, right?
and then you get down to here, it's the same again. So these are bigger stalls, these are smaller stalls, and they just highlight the space a little bit different, so
I see.
it would be the same number.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So, futuristic, cutting edge, or traditional, or old school?
Just make one comment, that chip seals don't last forever. We'll have to resurface this road again in 7 to 10 years, and if we determine that it needs to be painted different at that time.
I was going to say, and by that point, all the people that hate it will have voted us off anyway, so it won't really matter. Funny? Interesting.
Well,
A little funny.
Just one more thing. I'm going to try and persuade Councilwoman Lee to rethink her rethink. So if you're having teenagers with backing problems, wouldn't you rather have them having the backing problems toward the curb rather than out into the bike lanes?
I'm thinking hitting the
Yeah.
cars when they back in.
But I would say,
No,
would you rather
hitting
have
cars when
them?
they back
Yeah.
in. But those are fixed cars, so you got property damage as opposed to pulling into an active lane of traffic backing out.
In contrast, would you rather have them backing into children or into the lane of
Well,
travel?
there, okay, that dropped the mic on that one. Yeah.
Someone needs to think about the children. Okay. I'm sorry. We have Mr. Frank. Let me actually to your suggestion before. Is there anybody that has a question that might okay, let's have a question. And for those of you that don't know, a while ago, the recommendation was made. We know you can't open the microphone for a back and forth debate on every issue, but at a minimum, every once in a while, wouldn't it be nice if you just said, does anyone have a question? Because maybe a question from the audience can get some things going in our minds. So, Mr. Franks, I think you have a question.
I guess the first question I have is, what's the motivation for doing these things here? Changing Fairfield there? What's the motivation?
I think actually
Changing
initially,
it from what it is now.
I think it was just that discussion. I think I might have even brought it up initially, saying if we're going to recoat the street and if we're gonna paint it, this would be the time to at least have the discussion. So it was really just is it something we should consider?
But there isn't anything that you've, in any of these options that is clearly more safe than what's currently there. In particular, if you're going to add bike lanes, I'm going to argue that it's going to get increasingly less safe. And finally, the next question I have is there an option where you have the bikes on the east side? I mean, you have a 2-lane space where the bikes are at, rather than having them by the cars. If you park everything on the west side and you have the bikes on the, I don't know if that's possible, if there's any code for that kind of thing, but it would seem to me that it would be safer if you got the bikes completely away from the cars. And I'm kind of opposed, not a question, but I'm kind of opposed to the bikes there because that road is, as you know, Steve, it's quite busy. And if you add bike traffic to that, I see this being potentially a safety problem. Okay, so just be aware of that.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Just one comment. Those are, go ahead.
No, there already is bike traffic there.
Yeah.
There already is
there
bike
is.
riders there. So we're not necessarily adding bikes because the bikers already use the road. And so
Just giving them a designated
just giving them a
path.
designated lane is the only thought behind that. So
And I guess I would argue that it is safer than what we have now because of the east side parking darting across. Now, does that subside when this parking lot gets built? Maybe a little bit, but we saw this really busy when the library opened, but even before the library, was this picture taken before it was open?
About a year ago, I think.
So it might have been under construction, but maybe not completed. But even before, this parking lot was packed, and both sides of Fairfield and even onto Crestwood were packed. I think this will help. But on the hot days when the splash pad is busy, moving having less parking, having less people dart across the street, I think is an enhancement of safety.
What about putting the bicycles on the east side?
Could you answer that question, Andy? Does the MUTCD address that?
double lane.
We have all the options in front of us. We could eliminate bike lanes altogether. That's, as Cole mentioned, the bikes are still there. They're still going to use the facility. You could even argue that making it easier for bicyclists to get there reduces the amount of parking that you need, because more people can go to exercise on a bike instead of driving the car to go and exercise, or whatever the case might be. It's not inappropriate to have a bike lane on only one side of the road. It's typically recommended by the bicycle industry and the manuals for that you have one on each side of the road, so all bicyclers are riding with the traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you just a clarifying question, Cole? Have we done a striping plan in the new proposed parking lot? Is it just straight on parking, or is it angle parking in that new, or is it back in parking in the new parking lot?
The new parking will be just traditional 90-degree parking.
Okay.
That will mimic what's existing in the current parking lot. It just continues and flows to the west.
And how many spaces are we?
I think we add an additional 70 to 75 additional parking stalls.
That's great. Thank you. And then the other question, just, I think the idea of bike lanes, will you go back to one that shows a bike lane? Are we going from Second North all the way up to Mutton Hollow with bike lanes?
That would be the intent, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So at least we've got a stretch, but as soon as you get to Second North, we don't have any bike lanes right now. Is that right?
That would be correct, yeah.
Right. And the other part of this was that we just approved an active transportation plan.
That's right.
And we're trying to now incorporate more of this. We've agreed to do more of that in our striping and in our planning for roads, because I think this is something we're trying to encourage more use of bikes and whatnot, but trying to make it safer.
Certainly much more efficient to do the paint striping when there's new surface on the roadway.
Mr. Pierce, did you have a question for the council?
Well, this is Pearson, a long time ago, had me draw some plans up once, just with respect to that park, Heritage Park, Walton Parish. If you go back,
Which one?
Andy, that shows the vegetation and everything.
This one?
The aerial.
Right
Yes.
there.
Does the city own these trees right along here? No. No? They're on
They're actually parking there.
Well, Crestwood Village, we own some of them are on our property, but some of them are on the property for Crestwood Village. So,
Yeah, I was just thinking, at that time, when I did that, I put parking along here because I thought the library would be over there. That's all changed, but
yeah.
the fact is that's a very safe area, and this is also gonna be parking. You might have to sacrifice a little sidewalk.
Well, Crestwood Village is a private property, so we can't put public parking on their private property.
No, I mean, take a little bit of the sidewalk off there. This is, we're talking about for the future. And protect these people, and those people are gonna walk across that street, you know. They're gonna get hit. And that's the paramount thing, is safety, public safety, because there's enough congestion as it is. Just go to the library for little kids.
And,
Right.
yeah, I think that's why it's
It's a good idea.
enticing to
Keep
to
it.
have the parking be on
Yeah.
that west side, on the park side of the street.
Yeah.
Thank you. So feelings, council, I'll, if you can't tell my bias, especially having my kids attend the school down the street, I do agree that changing the type of parking within a block of each other, it would maybe be nice to try something a little more cutting edge, where it's not right next to other angle parking, but maybe it's not that big of a deal. We also have room where we, in the future, if you really needed additional parking further north on 100 East between the school and Second North, you could also look at angle parking there in the future. But
Well, I would go for number 2. I think that would be the least amount of conflict as far as how to use it, but it would keep the parking to the west side, which would be safer for the kids, and it would also allow the bike lanes in the room that it's needed. That's how I would like to see it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion if we have enough consensus to move forward.
I think I will second that, Councilwoman Lee. The only thing I would like to see is, I don't know, maybe it's not possible, there's just not enough real estate there. Just if there's any possibility to add additional buffer between the bike lanes and the lanes of traffic, but maybe there's not. I don't know.
Pretty tight
Hey,
here.
let me ask you, right?
So let me just recognize we have a motion by Councilmember Lee and a second by Councilmember Snell. Further discussion.
Okay. Just a question, on number 2, where you have the bike lane, is there additional stripe, just a single stripe line there between that and the road, or is it just opened?
Yeah, that doesn't indicate really any striping at all right now.
Yeah,
I think there is a stripe there.
There is? Okay.
It just probably wasn't in that graphic. I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. Because I think that there needs to be,
Right.
if that's the case.
Absolutely. Needs to be designated bike lanes.
And just for the record, where they do have bike lanes, I mean, statistics show that it is a lot safer for bicycles and less traffic, for the, it works out really well for the cars as well. It directs them.
You mean to have, I'm sorry, to have the bike
Yeah,
lane-
to actually have the
Bike
lanes. I mean,
Yeah.
you think that when they intermingle, everything's fine, but in reality, when you have a dedicated bike lane, it's actually, accidents go down. And I mean, that's been proven across the country.
Yeah, and I think also this idea of separating, like they're starting to do that a little bit more in Salt Lake, where they separate the parking. And there's front-end 45-degree parking on the north side of the Capitol building where I work, and it works really well because, and so I definitely, not the hill to die on. I mean, pulling in, I'm just kind of avant-garde, in that, so I think, yes, I would love to back in, and that would work better, you could see. So I love the idea, but I can see that not many people actually do that. And I think that the option 2 is definitely an improvement, and it's part of the active transportation plan. Of course, safety is always a matter of heads up for whoever, every individual needs to exercise caution, and a bike lane's not going to protect, it's not going to protect you if a car comes over into it. But it does say, hey, bikes are allowed here too, and so watch out. It sort of changes over time, I think.
Yeah.
Even striping the perception of the community that they recognize that people are using the bike lanes and that we need to watch out for the bikes. So I wouldn't vote no, if the consensus, 3, I would vote yes for 2. I'd kind of prefer to be a little experimental and try option 3, but, that not being the case, I'll go for option number 2.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Council members? Snell?
Is it me? Aye.
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 Impasse.
Aye.
Thank you. We have vote carries 4 to 1 with Councilmember Adams not voting. Thank you. Next on our agenda is discussion of strategic planning and goals. Council, you've received in your packet, we had a request from Councilmember Page and Councilmember Snell for discussion of the purpose of this agenda item would be to briefly discuss priorities, get the council on track with discussing policy issues and initiatives for the city during future meetings, and it was included with a Word document that was included in the packet. And with that, since the 2 of you asked for this to be on the agenda, I'll turn it to one of you if that works.
Okay. I mean, should we just go down from each one?
You bet.
This year, and we're going to a work session just, a week from Saturday. One of the concerns that I've had in the past in Kaysville is, to be honest with you, I think our roads are wanting. And I think that it's probably time to be looking at upgrading our roads and make sure that maybe we come to a new mindset of exactly how we take care of our roads. I believe that, every city that I've talked to about this particular thing and contractors who actually do roads, there's no doubt that when we regularly maintain our roads, we extend the life of them a long ways. And because of that, the initial amount of money that you use to maintain them, even though that's a little bit more, in the long run, you actually save quite a bit of money. But you got the additional benefit of having safer roads. And, you know, I guess we could, it's kind of like, it's like that old story, you know, do you put up on a mountain road up by a cliff, do you put the guardrail up there, or do you just station an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff? And I think that the best thing to do is to maintain the roads. And I would like to encourage the council, that is one area that I would like to look at. And maybe come up with a new way of thinking on that and see if we can, because I really think it's a public safety issue, and it is smart business and to invest the money on these kind of things, because, you know, there's some things that are nice, but there's some things that are important, and this is one of those important things.
And not to mention, not just safety too, but the wear and tear on cars, you know, that the more times you hit a chuck hole, eventually that all adds up in car maintenance costs as well, so.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I was watching a group of bikers go down Sunset, and it was like they were going like this all the way down, and it's dangerous for bikers too.
And that's a perfect segue into the active transportation plan, that as long as we're, you know, doing road maintenance, when we have the chance and we're there and we're doing the restriping, now you can do bike lanes and incorporate aspects of the active transportation plan.
Exactly.
So that's another thing to consider.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. Part of that the street maintenance and upgrades is the funding options. I think that's you know, we get a certain allotment of money every year from the state called C road funds, I think is what it's called, Class C road funds, and it's always
never enough.
It's never enough.
I mean, that's the reality.
The other way. Yeah, it's never enough to do a whole lot of maintenance around the city, and so, you know, whatever funding options there are for doing that, as well as trying to make I have in my family consulting civil engineers for a number of communities in northern Utah, and I talk to them a lot about street maintenance and how they do that and how they try to incorporate that into the communities they work in, and I think that's something I'd really like us to take a look at doing and maybe implementing as an active street maintenance program where we're routinely going through the city and maintaining. Of course, that's over the course of decades here that we're talking, but that's going to make our roads last much longer in the long run. So, but there's realizing there's funding considerations that really can hamstring us on our ability to do much in any given year. So,
right.
That's, you know, we may have some unique funding solutions or options that have been proposed in other communities too. So.
In years past, we did a project, I think it was Palos Verdes, that neighborhood, that whole area over there, and we did a short, was it a 2 or a 3 year bond where we paid for it. We built it while the costs were low. It was a larger amount than what we had in our B&C coming in. Now, the hard part about that is because you don't know if you're going to have a really bad winter, and you wish you had them. But we were able to do a large portion of town and budgeted or financed it over 3 years. I think it was. Was it 5? Okay, 5 years.
I remember that.
It was a big bang, pretty big bang for our buck.
Right. So
Yeah.
those kinds of things. I know some other communities have even gone the route of adding a street utility for road maintenance into their utility bill, you know. And I'm not saying I'm advocating that, but that's an option that other communities have done. That way you get other entities that are non-taxing entities participating in that, because they also contribute to the wear and tear on the roads, big school buses and things like that. So that's another
some of the debate of that, not just on roads, but on other type of uses like police or fire or other protection is you get a pretty, at least I've seen pretty big pushback when that issue has come up, and having a road fee, so to speak, that it ends up being a taxation without representation, without truth in taxation. Yeah.
Sure. Early this year, we talked about analyzing impact fees between us and other cities. I haven't completed that study. I'm kind of in the middle of it, but comparing us to Layton, on the road line item, we charge $500 and Layton charges $2,500. And earlier on this year, I also had suggested that several contractors had kiddingly asked me, hey, stay quiet about how cheap the fees are in Kaysville. I think there's reasons why our roads, I am from the west side, Sunset Drive is terrible, so is Burton Lane. From the Kaysville border on Burton Lane all the way back around to Old Mill Lane. I mean, just not forewarning, but just kind of as, I guess, passing information, there's a committee being formed, and they'll be coming to council because it's being overlooked far too long, you know, and the excuse, this isn't meant to be negative, but it's meant to draw an objective comparison. We spent $100,000, you know, rapidly on some park and rec stuff, which I'm all about, but I think infrastructure needs to come first. And I had a story from a contractor the other day. He stopped by my home and he told me about his daughter. They were riding down Burton Lane going home. This is a very well-to-do contractor in town, but I'll leave him out of it. And he says, you know, it's funny, my daughter, you know, my 8-year-old daughter in the back seat was sitting there going down the road, chattering her teeth and saying, Dad, when are we gonna get new roads, Dad? I'm like, I've tried, man. And we've talked about this in meetings before. I understand it's a big undertaking, but I think it should be priority one. You know, and we have the issues of how many people want to pay for their curb and gutter out in West Kaysville. You know, I think we need to come up with a solution there for people who have been grandfathered in since the beginning of time, and here comes all of us influx of new guys saying, hey, we want new roads, and they're like, hey, we liked the farm roads. We need to find a threshold where we grandfather people in or out of and say, okay, at this mark in time, if we don't have a valid lien on your property, we're going to pay as taxpayers for your curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Because it has to be done at this point. We're beyond the, well, let's just keep waiting until they write us a check for that curb and gutter. We're beyond that. So it's bad down there, beyond bad. There's no road anymore, to be quite honest. Sunset Drive and Burton Lane, there's not a road there. It's a patch. So.
Just the road impact fee, we did amend that recently as a city, primarily because the impact fee on, well, two things. The impact, our capital facilities plan, which comes up with what that number is, included the overpass, included Shorelands Drive, which at one point was going to be the frontage road, if you will, that mirrored Legacy Highway North, that is now not in the same location that it was always going to be in. But more than that is this legislature has made it so impact fees are only for new construction. So we couldn't take any impact fee money, road money, even if we quadrupled it. Well, two things, we have to, it has to be scientific, so we can't just execute it. You have to say, here are the roads we are going to build, but impact fees unfortunately can't be used for reconstruction, just like park impact fees can't. So that becomes our drawback, and we
What roads have we built in this city from dirt to asphalt? Because that fund must be worth millions by now then. I don't know of any roads that we've built. Developers build them.
I don't know that it's just roads, as much like the overpass. Our participation in the overpass was one. Mr. Thacker has more experience with this that you may be able to shed some light for us. But the fee that we charge, I think part of the reason why our fee is so low now is because we don't have very many future roads to be built, and that money can only be used for future roads to be built.
There's no petitioning the legislature, and we're in duress of road structure.
It would take a change at the legislative.
So you can advocate
level.
for that at the legislature, but you know, once they pass the law that cities have to abide by, you'd have to get them to reverse it.
We couldn't petition then.
Not
just for our needs, not statewide.
Not unless there's an exception somewhere in the law that there's some discretion on the part of it, which I doubt there is. You know, it's just applies uniformly.
The other concern is Burton Lane is being redone this summer, and many residents are frustrated out there that curb, gutter, and sidewalk aren't going with it. You know, at what point do we get West Kaysville done? You know, a lot of people have kidded about splitting it at I-15 and creating West Kaysville. You know, that happened 100 years ago when Layton was created, but I'm teasing, but at what point do we pay attention to the infrastructure out there? It's the worst in the city. I've heard of a neighboring public works director who is an engineer and the director. He holds both positions, and he said, I wouldn't come, because we have an opening coming up in that department, you know, or we will, as the superintendent of that retires in November. And he says, I won't come to Kaysville even if you paid me more money. You're too outdated. You have to pay me 30% more than what you're paying him for me to take on your infrastructure. So I don't know what that says or doesn't say, but it's a little dilapidated.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of us who live on the west side, ironically. So we're going to have tar and feather mobs pretty soon down there if we don't get something going.
I think it all comes down to how you want to fund it. When we talked about the sidewalks on Angel, we actually had staff go put together what it would look like to do sidewalks on Angel on both sides, all the way down to the roundabout, to do it on Smith Lane, to do it on Sunset, to do it on Webb Lane, not Webb. Oh yeah, it's a Webb Lane that is like this wide, with joggers on it every single day, all hours of the day. And what that would look like money-wise, and then how do you fund it? And that was where the number got so big that we just said, okay, if we do a special assessment area, which is like a taxing district, so those who benefit, but then you have those that say, I don't want to be taxed for the just me taxed. I think everybody should have to pay for it, and then it becomes such a large. But we can certainly give direction. If the interest was to say, what would it take to do curb, gutter, and sidewalk on all the key areas on the west, we could give that direction for it might not be a perfect number, a bidded number. We could ask staff to identify the areas in town that it's lacking, and then have them come up with maybe not a plan, but at least a dollar amount. They could get us a pretty good idea of, here's all this curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Here's the area that we have liens. Here's the area that we don't. Here's the dollar amount to do it. That would at least give us a starting point.
It kind of gets back to that discussion, the presentation at the beginning of the council meeting where they were talking about having enough data. And I think, you know, you can drive around and see the spots that, like you said, but if you had a cost figure attached to each project, you kind of broke it down, and then you compare that to, you know, your sources of revenue, or consider expanding them in some cases, as Councilman Snell was recommending. So you really just, you know, you have a certain amount of revenue and you have a certain amount of expenses, and it's got to balance at the end of the day. And so you got to prioritize those projects. Probably can't do them all at once, but I certainly agree with Councilman Adams that that's an infrastructure need, and it should be prioritized at the top of the list. So,
do we not have those cost reports now on previous jobs that we've done?
Well, you think
I think by now, after however many years we've been around, we probably have an idea on costs of roads. I'm just, you know, wondering if those cost reports are there. I've yet to find them. But Burton Lane, it's a total tear out asphalt and reconstruct. I guess my practical point coming from that and my contractor background, which I am still licensed, is that if we're going to go rip a road completely out, you know, maybe we do it the right way when we reconstruct it. If we're going to go and do a quick overlay, yeah, okay, maybe not. But to completely tear that out, and Burton Lane is keywayed. There's just little pieces that are left to go. It's like, you know, we're giving up in the last little bit of the marathon on Burton Lane there. And I think there's still time where that could be amended and get that curb and gutter and sidewalk done. We heard all those concerned folks in here the last time about safe walking routes.
So what is the rules on having the owners versus the city pay for the curb and gutter and sidewalk? I've always thought that the owner of that property would be responsible for paying for the cost of that once the city did it. What is the stipulation on that as far as city versus homeowner paying for it, or landowner?
Go ahead.
When development occurs on the property, they're required to install the abutting street improvements. There's been places in town where that requirement was delayed. It's probably the best way to say it. For example, Shepherd Lane, which was developed about 30 years ago, the developer came in and argued that they wanted to maintain the rural nature of that neighborhood. They did 3/4 acre lots, and the council delayed the requirement for curb gutter and sidewalk. They took a, best term I think that describes it, as a deferral agreement in the form of a lien against those properties. So if that's the situation, it's up to the council to call those liens, require those people to pay, and then we go install those improvements, which
We have
theoretically were not included in the price of their home when they bought it, so they've saved that much money. Now that's theoretically, it's not real. Other cases are.
Builders always charge market value for their home.
Exactly.
So, yeah, the emphasis on theoretically.
There are also many properties out there that were already developed when it was annexed to Kaysville.
Yeah.
And we have no lien on those properties, no deferral agreement, and there's no imminent development. So there's nothing that we have to just go say, it's time for you to put your curb and gutter in. There are methods to do that, as referenced to special improvement district, where you collect all those properties together and say, we're going to do a project and install these facilities. You will then be assessed a special tax to pay us back for it. That requires approval of a certain percentage of the people affected within the area that the improvements are going to be made. The other option is, so the argument has been these other categories are paying in one sense or another for their own curb and gutter. So these people who have none of those other categories applicable to their property, an existing developed property with no curb and gutter, the argument is, why shouldn't they pay just like we had to? Now, you can argue that point and determine what level you're comfortable with, but that's been the discussion in the past.
So basically, it's up to the council as far as how you would want to
That's correct.
fund it.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the discussion that was had, right or wrong, or if you agree with it or not, that the previous council had when it came down to Angel Street was, no, we shouldn't pay for all these improvements, but if they want to raise the funds because it's a designated safe route from the school, then we participate. This council can choose not to, can choose to pay for all of it, can choose to pay for none of it. It's really discretion.
Could we try and approach the Burton Lane property owners, since that's coming, and still include it in and do a complete, get it, you know?
We have not.
No, could we? Sorry.
Good. I don't know, the time constraints are getting tighter and tighter as each day passes.
Mayor, if I may just make a suggestion. I think this has been a great discussion because it's so important, but why don't we have a dedicated agenda item where we would actually work towards a decision on how we want to go forward on that and how we want to prioritize it, and maybe just talk about some of the other priority, because I think our thought on this would be that we touch on these briefly with the idea that they're all goals, strategic goals that we'd like to accomplish, and just kind of mention them briefly. But I think this is so important, it's good that we went into a little more detail on this.
With the time frame on Burton Lane, I think it's good that it came out. I wasn't aware you didn't share that information about what your agenda, or your agenda on your agenda is, I guess, so.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so maybe on, I don't know if the next agenda or what
to,
are you saying?
But to that point, since the item was raised, maybe we could ask staff, and I have no idea what that looks like, how complicated it would be to look at other options for Burton Lane, or maybe you have. But since the item was raised, maybe it would be worth at least pursuing it in the meantime, instead of, I mean, we could give you simple direction now to pursue what that might look like, versus just waiting for another 2 weeks before we talk about it again. That's 2 weeks that you could at least pursue it.
Andy, I'm willing to help with that and knock the doors. It's up to you, on Burton Lane. If you could, maybe if I can't find certain property owners, if you could help assist with the record and lead me to them. What do you think?
We'll see where we're at I know there are some liens on Burton Lane.
What's that?
Well, I know we do have some liens on Burton Lane. I don't know.
But
the
that's a
facts.
whole other discussion though, right? If we have a lien that they have to put in the curb gutter and sidewalk, and whether or not they're capable of doing that's another question, right? I mean, we can say it's time for you to build it, and they might say,
I think we talked in our Saturday meeting, our work session, about like a payment plan too, if people can't
we've
on the
done
spot.
that kind of a thing before,
We
too.
can work with them, and it seems like a good time to be doing it where we're completely tearing the road up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It's the best time to do it. Just because I'm not sure of the answer, the mayor described the stipulations and the restrictions involved with impact fees. You know, granted, Burton Lane and Sunset Drive and a lot of these streets that are in need of repair don't have a lot of the sidewalk on them. Is that something that's, because it's an existing street, is that something that would be precluded from use in an impact fee, even though it would be used towards potentially expansion of the road, widening in certain areas that are undeveloped, or adding curb, gutter, and sidewalk that does not exist currently?
Essentially, two
John?
criteria for using impact fees. It has to be new capacity, and it has to be in your impact fee plan.
Right, it's got to be in the impact fee analysis, right? It's got to be part of that.
So
So if we were to add, say,
we
just,
would
I'm
have
just,
we would have to add it into the plan,
correct.
and then we'd
If we
have
were
to.
to add it in the plan, would it be something that would be useful in that plan? I mean, would it be legal to do that as?
That
have
was
as
the
part of
second part. We would have to determine if it's eligible to be in the
That's a better
impact
term,
fee
eligible.
plan. And my sense is that it's not, because it's not creating any new capacity.
I mean, in
It's
certain
just-
areas,
it's just-
it's widening, but it's
If you're
not
adding
in all.
additional lanes, signals and intersections are typically eligible.
Just add 3
'cause
feet.
they
Like,
add
cutting it out a
additional
little, widen
capacity.
the whole thing, huh? Susan says, put a bike lane in, there we go.
We're adding bike lanes, right?
Bike lane is not capacity. on the highway.
Try telling that to the
How about a
bikers.
motorcycle lane?
There you go. Anyway, I just was wondering if
But then
that's.
again, it has to go through the plan and be adopted into the impact fee.
Right, I mean, that would take a long time to
It
get
would
into
take
the
more
impact
than
fee. There's a whole
more
study
than
that needs to be done.
The summer, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would miss this whole year.
Impact fees are probably the most difficult to understand and plan for and utilize, because you say you've got impact fees, you're charging them, why not use them for certain, but they're very, very restricted on what they can be used for, fortunately.
But if it did turn out that people were able to pay for their own and willing to get it done right now, then we're not worried about that concern, right? This argument becomes
That's
irrelevant.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if there's one, I would say if there's one or two property owners that can't, I mean, we found $100,000 for pickleball a month ago, and then we found an X amount for tree cleanup 2 weeks ago. It just seems a bona fide cause. This is a 50-year roadway that we're gonna construct, so I think it's worth the time. Don't give me that look, Drew. I raised this a month ago. You're acting like you're raising this now? Contractor's coming in a month. I have raised it before, in all due fairness.
I understand.
All right, let's continue down your list.
Okay, the next item on the list is capital projects prioritization, scheduling, and funding. So we did talk about that in our work session a little while ago, but I don't think we've gotten back to it. So we probably need to get back to prioritizing capital projects on the capital projects.
I'm assuming
list.
that there's going to be some discussion on that during the budget
Yeah.
work session, where we're going to get into that and take a look at our capital projects list.
Which actually goes back to our first thing on the list too, is the
Exactly,
budget.
the budget.
And that's definitely in the critical path right now.
Exactly.
but-
And just so that people know, I mean, those capital projects would be, you know, what kind of needs do we have for additional building capacity, or those kinds of things. For example, we've got this building that used to be our library here, which is currently not used for anything, but there's good reason that it's not used for much of anything right now. That building needs a revamp, and we had a presentation, I think it was before this council, right? It was, or before this council was
No,
sworn in. It was
yeah.
last fall, sometime
Yeah,
November or something like that, when we had some consultants describe some of the capital facilities that were probably in need in the city
And just-
over the next few decades.
Yeah, and just briefly, that library would probably raise to the top of the list, not so much because we would prioritize it ahead of something else in terms of value, but just because that's a little bit low-hanging fruit, right? Where you get a lot of bang for your buck quickly, and it needs to be done, rather than just have the building continue to sort of deteriorate and not be used.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so the next item is just a legal services discussion, where we would have an agenda item and kind of look at the way we do legal services now, and maybe look to see if there's a better way. For example, and given our size, not that it hasn't worked well in the past, but one question would be, is Kaysville a big enough city now where we could have a dedicated city attorney who's an employee, and would that be more cost effective? And also, clearly, I think the dotted line and the operational line should still go to the city manager, but perhaps the two persons that would report to the council would be the city manager and then the city attorney, so that the council had the attorney with a strong line, and that would be appointed by the. So that's something to consider. I'm not saying we should do that, but it's just something we could consider.
Absolutely.
And there could be other ways. You could also, maybe instead of hiring an in-house attorney, you could have it go out to bid and maybe rotate that as well. That would be another
contractual,
option.
yeah, you bet.
Next item on the list is engineering services discussion. And that, that could cover a lot of things, the current reporting interaction between engineering and public works possibly. I think Councilman Adams mentioned that. I'm trying to remember, Councilman Page, help me understand remember what the other issue was with engineering services.
No, I'm just saying that we hire a lot of that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just think it needs to be looked at.
Okay.
The best way to handle it.
Same thing with the legal.
Yeah,
we
talked about it.
Just echoing.
And then next item is further improve public communications and involvement. I think Kaysville's made tremendous progress under the years that Mayor Hyatt has been here and in the previous city councils. I mean, it's amazing how much better our website is, how much better we're getting at reaching out. But we can always do a little better, so that could be a topic of where are we, have an agenda item, make an assessment, are there continuing ways that we can continue to improve?
Exactly. And just to further on that, I mean, I think several of us sat in on a presentation in the St. George meetings where there's some cities in Utah that actually have a dedicated public communications officer, and that's their primary role, or one of the hats that they wear is the public communications director or something along those lines, that is really active and is responsible for posting information to Facebook, or sending out tweets, or not just social media, but the website and management of that, as well as coordinating events in the community and those kinds of things. That was a very interesting and very enlightening, I thought, presentation.
It's great.
Which was terrific. A lot of these communities are doing a lot of fun things, and I think Kaysville does a lot of fun things, and are there ways that we can help communicate those fun things even better?
We broadened that a little bit. Honestly, I started our Facebook page and I started our Twitter account, and I've been pretty much the only one that's done it for the last few years, good or bad, confession. But recently we've broadened that quite a bit. So Maria has access, Ryan has access,
Yeah.
Chris Willie has access from Recreation. Holly has access, Anne Marie has access to post and put whatever, and so more of the things lately than not have been from staff and making that more available and saying, hey, when you see something that might be worth doing. Ryan recently amended it, so now when we post on Facebook, it automatically tweets too. So we're doing both, and so I think we're doing more and more that way, and having more staff take the opportunity. So I don't know how I know Parks and Rec owns their own or runs their own, but I know Chris Willie does have the ability to also post, and Maria has done a good job of that as well. But like Anne Marie's been doing planning commission agendas since she prepares those and gets them ready. She Facebooks those out as well.
Yep.
That's excellent.
And I'm going to combine the next two. That's electrical power, and we had a great presentation on that tonight at 5:30.
Can I make one comment before you move on? I just, because my meeting down in Salt Lake reminded me, I just have to tell you this live broadcasting, how many people do we have online right now, Ryan? 54 people watching from a remote location, plus those are here. That's pretty awesome. I think we've been up to as much as 80 or 85, and it's pretty impressive. I wanted to just to toot Ryan's horn, which we have already, but since he presented at the league conference in St. George, he's had Centerville City and their staff come and check it out. Saratoga Springs was here last week to check it out. The president of the league is a Highland City Council member. He asked me after our meeting today, he said, okay, so you're telling me for $2,500 we can be online, that's it? Can we come up and look at it? And then the executive director said, we're gonna want Ryan to teach that again at our September conference because we've had so many people say, I'm so sad I missed that session, that sounded awesome. And so I think that's, I just kudos to Ryan, because it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to make it happen and have it work really well. So I just wanted to plug that for Ryan.
Just not to pile on, but it was interesting in that session too, how many cities, the electricity, Chris and I were in that meeting, and everyone was engaged. Oh, this is exciting. There should have actually been many more, but I'm sure the word's kind of spreading out.
Yeah, there was probably
communities,
40 or 50 maybe that attended that, and there were some people that were really excited. And then you did a live demo of it, and they got a little less excited about you zooming up on their faces and stuff. That was really great.
Yeah, I've seen that, by the way, on this feed.
I'm like, oh, I don't like that so much. No, it was great.
We probably should pass some rules about, how close you can get in and.
No. It was
Just
awesome.
kidding.
And Ryan, you did a great job.
And so the next two are we talked about a little bit of with the metering and smart grid and smart meters for electric power, but that also includes the solar and rate structure discussion that we had a few weeks ago. So we're already making progress on those things. The water is a really interesting one because it's one that's years out, decades after we're here, it'll still be an issue. But we should be aware of what's happening there with secondary water metering, like on the new installations, and this as water becomes more and more of an issue on the Wasatch Front, that's something that Kaysville really needs to. So I think we could actually have a session and sort of a presentation again from maybe the Weber Basin District, and I know we've done that in the past, but see where we are and if there's any items, and that also goes to our infrastructure within the city. What's our schedule for replacing some of the older infrastructure that might be at 60, 70, 80 years? Are we, we've had 5 leaks, and I'm not saying I know there's an association there between age of those pipes. Probably not, because one of them was damaged by a contractor that hit it with their equipment, and that had nothing to do with the age of pipe. But certainly, if we took a look at that, and the same we're doing with streets, where does it make sense to replace aging infrastructure with water? So
you remind me of water and Weber Basin, and I have an invitation I'll forward to the council. And did you all get it? Okay, all right. They're inviting elected officials on a day-long trip to tour our watershed from Mountain to Faucet, and I think you've done it before.
Yeah, if you haven't done that, Lorene Kamalu and I did it, who's on the Planning Commission, and it was very interesting, very educational to follow the water basically from the headwaters where it starts all the way down through the system and through the processing plant. And the most amazing thing that sticks in my mind, so I'm a little, well, I won't say that, but when you look at local government, what are the services that are provided that really make sense that the private sector can't do? And that, our Constitution gives the local government the right to do it at the local level. And it was so impressive. I didn't realize how they have this 16-ounce bottle of water. And, you might pay $1.25 if you're getting it out of $1.50 if you're getting it out of a machine, or maybe less if you go to Walmart or something. But you're getting 16 ounces of water for I don't know how much. And then I thought, well, it's probably 50 times, or I wasn't really thinking through it. And they have the huge jug there that's, like a 10-gallon jug. And I thought, maybe that's the same price. No, that's like 1/100th or 1/1000th of a price, I can't remember, for that 10-gallon jug of what it would cost you from the private sector to buy that water. And so...
And the EPA requirements, I remember that was one thing that stuck with me when I went on the tour, that what comes out of the plant, and maybe it gets a little more, less clean during the distribution system, but how clean it has to be when it comes out of there is actually higher requirements than the water we're buying.
Yeah.
So
very high quality culinary water at an extremely low price. But, back to water again, that's as it becomes, the law of supply and demand, as that source becomes more and more scarce and the population along the Wasatch Front becomes larger, those water issues and conservation and sources of water is going to become very important. So,
Yeah.
and let's see, so two more things on the list. The success framework, this is something the state's doing. I don't want to take credit for it other than we've implemented it in my division, but the governor challenged the all state agencies to improve efficiency by 25% over 5 years. And the interesting thing about it, there was a lot of sort of angst among some of the administrators of, well, how do you become 25% more efficient in 5 years? That sounds like a huge piece, but the reality is you never have enough funds to do everything that is needed to be done. And the thing I like about the way they've implemented this formula is it makes perfect sense. So you're measuring quality. You're measuring quality and you're measuring how much is produced. It's a manufacturing model actually, but you can apply it to services as well and decide what does throughput or what does production look like and what does quality look like. And you engage all the people within a division who are actually doing the work and the directors and everybody to come up with what are our quality measures. How do we determine the level of quality or the level of service? And then how much are we producing? How many residents? How much of this do we have to produce? And then on the bottom of the, it's actually just a simple division divided by the operating expense. So very simple equation, and you add up the expenses, and then and the actual number is irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. But what means something is over time, how does that number change? And you're becoming more efficient if you're able to still provide quality and the level of service that the community wants, and you compare that to cost. And if the quality and the output is growing faster than the operating expense, you're becoming more efficient. So it's a real snapshot way to look at where are we doing more with less? Are we becoming more efficient? And that's what's exciting to me about a lot of these technologies that are coming in is they help us to be more efficient, like in power and metering and all of that. Any other thoughts on that?
Is the thought here to maybe have the council review these ideas, thoughts, maybe over the next 2 weeks, rank them and say, these are the things these are important things to talk about. Why don't we focus on, my vote would be to focus on this, and this first, so that we, and obviously trying to tackle them all in one meeting. And I know you're not doing that tonight, but even in future meetings, are you wanting the council to kind of rank what they would like to talk about in what order?
Yeah, I think so, with one caveat, though, and that is that they're not all equally punishing. They're not all equally costly to implement. So if there's things, and we may be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, so some of them definitely, would take more time and more of a process. Others might be, let's just start. Let's, like on Success Framework, you could just have, what is the state doing? What are some of the documents available? Let's assign that to staff to get going on it. So that would be, something that wouldn't take a lot of effort on the council's part, I guess, to initiate. But, I think it depends. But yeah, I think that would be a good idea to have the council sort of rank what we think the priorities are. Some of them are legal requirements, like the budget that we have listed, but I think that would be a good idea. The last thing on the agenda is, this is an interesting thing, because to me, it's not really, it's not a core issue. It's not a fundamental issue. It's more of a scientific question, I guess, in my mind at least, that when is it appropriate, for example, to have a strong mayor form or our structure? Or when is it appropriate? And my opinion on that is not in Kaysville, because we're not large enough, and it would be duplicative and expensive to do that, and it wouldn't really give us anything. But we're probably large enough where we could consider or talk about having some sort of a hybrid council where maybe you had, because the state does not prescribe how many districts you have to have. You just have to have them relatively equal. So you could have, for example, three districts that would give you almost like the Senate and the House, where you have a little bit of a healthy tension there, that some are able to, some council people are able to maybe reach out to the community in a little more detail because only 10,000 people instead of 30,000 people are reporting to them. But you still get the benefits of having a citywide representation with the mayor and 2 council people. So I think that's something we could talk about, not to get into the pros and cons too much tonight, but.
I have to comment on that because when I've heard the word districting before, I've always thought to myself, yeah, that's fine, but then when you come here to the microphone, if we were all district, then it's like, really, only that guy's accountable to me. The other 4 of you can vote how you want because it doesn't matter, and that's always been a concern. The way you just mentioned that, though, if you had 2 at large and then 3 district, at least you would know that you've got, every resident would know that at a minimum, at least the majority of the voting council is accountable to them. And that's an interesting thought that changes maybe my bias that I've had before.
Couldn't you still have it all held accountable, though? And it's just more of a, a campaigning thing, and that's kind of, that you would be the liaison for that district somewhat. If then you had a concern or whatever, then you bring that to us. But I would think everyone could still be accountable to all the people. Anybody could come to any council member, even under districting.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a very interesting
thing.
thing.
I think you could do 5 and then leave the mayor at large,
Yeah, you could.
So that 5 districts and then leave the mayor.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of that personally, because as the mayor mentioned, you're not.
Is it okay if I'm not in favor of yours?
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm just saying the reason, and I guess we're getting into a detailed discussion, but I think we should put it on an agenda item and hash those out. I just think the hybrid system balances out the best of both, that it provides a nice balance.
It seems complex when it comes to voting and, I don't know.
Well, I think the full council would still vote in that case. It would be
mean
more of a
campaign,
campaign,
like
more of an
campaign.
election thing.
Yeah, it might get kind of.
But still actions to take, whether it's a
3 and 2.
a
Well-
rezone or whatever, we'd still be voting as a full council.
And I think that's a subject like that would be good to go to the public as far as getting public input before we agree to change that.
Oh, I
think
agree.
that would be a great way to do it.
Wouldn't the county have to be involved? Because we'd be 5 districts now with, these votes go to this district, these votes go to that district. So county.
That's a good question, and I have not researched it in the state code. Title 10 might have something to say about it, but I have not researched it other than to know that it's allowed. So I've read that, cities can do that. But as far as the process of doing it, I don't believe it requires a vote, but I totally agree with Councilwoman Lee that I first thought that it would be good to put it to a vote, just put it on the ballot as well. But at the very least should get input. I don't know whether it's required or not, but yeah, because it's a decision that,
It's a
it's a change of the structure of the
You bet.
council, yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all this, and I'm excited to
thank you.
get these things on the agendas in the future and get them discussed, and I think they're all excellent areas that we need to work on, and look forward to it.
Yeah. I think by virtue of the fact that we're getting into the budget in the next couple of weeks, we're going to already start tackling some of those discussions.
Yep.
So,
Thank you. Well, I guess we'll, if you're not looking for, maybe the council can review these and maybe think among yourselves which are the ones that maybe you'd like to prioritize in order of discussion, and then we can follow that up. Our next work session will be primarily budget related, but I think this is a good guidance for us to have, so thank you for putting it together. Next on our agenda is council member reports. I'll start with one. A little while ago, for years now, we've had a process, a formula in place in how we calculate fire protection services for our neighboring Fruit Heights. We provide fire and medical services or EMT services for Fruit Heights City. There's been a long-standing formula that has been in place that we say we take the costs, and I won't try and know the exact formula, but we take the cost, the total cost of operations, divide them over total assessed values, between both cities, and then calculate that percentage and present Fruit Heights with the bill. Last year, maybe the year before, they experienced pretty significant increases in that formula as it's currently laid out. More recently, we had a discussion with them. I was going to call it a clash, but a discussion on how that notification process went down. We attended their meeting. At the end of the day, I think all the council, you were copied on my response to them. We said, yes, we probably need to look at that, meaning that Fruit Heights' ability to grow is really constrained, so they're not growing. Kaysville's ability to grow is going to keep on going like this, and the formula as it's currently put together, as we continue growing and have more costs in the fire department, Fruit Heights' formula is essentially helping to shoulder. The formula as it is maybe shouldering more than what might be considered their fair share, since they're not growing at the same level. If our call volume is going up X amount every year and their call volume is remaining the same, is it fair for their cost to continue to go up where their call volume is largely unchanged over the past several years? Dean put together this year's assessment using the same formula that we've always used, and met with the city manager to provide that. Their city council has been very interested to know, what does this look like this year? And the formula as it's currently outlined is another pretty big increase for Fruit Heights. I had a conversation yesterday with the mayor of Fruit Heights, and he said, we talked about maybe having that discussion in the future after this budget year, but after we see what that increase is going to look like, how would you feel about having that a little sooner? And I certainly can't say that I blame them. By the time we meet next week, we'd like to have some kind of a discussion or dialogue with them, or at least include that in our budget discussion. I don't know what the perfect answer is, but you balance that with, well, here are our needs and here are our costs, but I'm not sure our current formula of property assessment mirrors call volume. And maybe those have been consistent in the past, but it seems like those are getting a little more skewed. So we'll have more information for you coming up. But just want to make you aware that initially we had said maybe after this budget year, let's have that dialogue. I think they're interested, and it seems fair to maybe have that dialogue a little sooner.
I'm glad for that report, Mayor, and I'll just piggyback on that. I think after that meeting that we had, I had some good discussions with the Fruit Heights council members, and they were open. Years ago we used to have fairly regular, probably annual meetings between the Fruit Heights City Council and the Kaysville City Council, because there were shared activities and there were shared concerns and shared services, and I think that would be a good idea to restart that so that we have regular. If it's annual, I don't know what needs to be any more frequent than that. Revisit that, to have regular meetings with them so that we're coordinating and we share more than a border with Fruit Heights. So
We'll pursue that as well.
Okay.
Any other council member reports?
I just have,
you started.
Just an update on the Play Unplugged. We are at least 21 businesses that are sponsoring brag badges. We'd like to see it 30. That would be ideal. More is even better. We're working on trying to encourage some more businesses to sponsor that. If you have any contacts that you can make, businesses that currently are not participating, and encourage them. It's an excellent way for marketing for the businesses. The foot traffic will increase. We have over 8,000 lanyards we're giving out to kids, and they are excited to participate in the program. So hopefully we'll get some more interest in that. We do have the lanyards in, and thanks to Maria and staff, they have been counting those out and dividing them for the school count. So we didn't realize there's also a newspaper that will go along to be handed out with the lanyards. Otherwise, we'd be handing them out tonight to take to the schools. But we're going to wait until those newspapers are counted, and then Maria will let us know so we can come in, pick them up, and take them to the schools for the kids. Any questions?
I just have a comment. The idea, the program, I think is awesome. I think it'll be very popular. I think it'll be very well received. The idea of taking something like this and getting it off the ground, it's really, really, really difficult to be the point person to do that. So I just want to compliment both Councilmember Garn and Councilmember Lee. I know Councilmember Lee's been doing a lot of grunt work to make it happen. So I applaud you for it's been a lot of work, but you've done a wonderful job.
Well, and an extra special thank you to our police officers that have been pounding the pavement, going to businesses, showing them samples of the lanyards, and encourage them to participate as well. So I do want to say thanks to them.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Did you want to add on to that, play unplugged, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I can take very little credit, and I basically said.
Well, I was just going to compliment Herb, and
yes,
I thought that would be
that's
bad
right.
form.
That would have been more appropriate.
Sorry. I'm just kidding. Jake.
That's funny. I just wanted to chime in because I know that we're each responsible for various schools, for liaising with various schools in town. But I don't have an elementary school, and originally mention had been made that maybe it would be, because some of you have multiple elementary schools, and that might be too much.
I would be happy to let you take one of mine. I've got 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help, but
Yeah.
I haven't contacted any of the schools as of yet, but I don't know if they've all been
Yeah.
contacted, or if you just need me to go to the
Yeah.
school to hand them out, or to distribute, or to attend the goodbye, farewell
Yeah,
program that they have at the schools, so
that's another good point to bring up. I meant to discuss. It sounds like most of the schools no longer have farewell assemblies like they used to in the past, like we were thinking. And so there is an email that we are asking the schools to send out to the parents with the instructions on how the program works. And so the contact that we make with the school, we just need to make sure that they get that email so that they can send it out to the parents so that they can get online and understand how the program works.
Yeah, and the feedback I got from my 2 schools' principals is that they prefer that to an assembly, because they said lots of times by the time you get to the final assembly, there's a lot of students that have already left on summer vacations, and it's sort of hard to coordinate, and so the idea of getting those to them now, where they can break them up by class, even they have a list of every teacher, and then the teacher can distribute them and sort of let them know how to introduce it, and send the email to the parents was kind of the preferred, what the principals preferred.
And we'll actually have you pick up the lanyards sometime, Maria, and concur with this, during this next week. We'll have those counted out, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that doable?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, okay. Because the program officially kicks off the Memorial Day or after Memorial Day. So we want to get those to the schools, and the schools can start disseminating them.
Well, I'll get with you then about which school you need me to help.
Yes, thank you so much.
And I
She won't
guess,
let you leave.
and I guess we should also, our main sponsor that paid for the cost of the lanyards was Zions Bank, and they contributed $5,000 to make that. Without that contribution, we really wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't have been able to do it. So just a public thank you to Zions Bank for their contribution.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Their additional contribution.
I had an interesting phone call today with a resident who reported a very strange thing about the cemetery, which I thought was interesting. Nothing wrong with the cemetery, but it's someone who lives in the area. I actually used to live in the area and used to walk in the cemetery an awful lot, so this was news to me. He reported that he's seen a number of cars that drive around within the cemetery in the evenings, and sometimes it's all during the day. And individuals, he mentioned that the individuals have some kind of a PDA or a cell phone or something that they're using while they're driving around. And it is distracting. I mean, sometimes there's walkers in there in the evenings, or there are people that might be visiting a gravesite, and these cars are going around slowly, and then sometimes they zoom around or whatever. Apparently, there is such a thing as some kind of an electronic game it's not geocaching, but it's some kind of an electronic caching game where there's going in, there's these digital locations with GPS coordinates where they go in and they collect arms or something like that, and points for going to a certain location. I mean, just digital weapons, you know, and then they have these battles or whatever. And it's very disconcerting to people that are walking in the cemetery and that are there to mourn and whatnot. I think I don't care that people want to play this game. They can do whatever they want on their own time, but in the cemetery, it seems like that's just a very inappropriate place to do it.
It's a regional game, so you can be in Layton, you can be in Ogden, and then your next portal, I think is what I heard it was called, is maybe in the Kaysville Cemetery, and you've got to drive by and with your phone and your GPS and find it to get your points and to move on to the next level. I only know that because when I was out that night at the windstorm, we responded to a suspicious vehicle, which will lead me to another comment, that Officer Danielson said, "I'll bet you he's playing the game," and we pulled up behind him and he talked to him and came back and said, "Yeah," and I don't know what the game is called. But that's why he was
Ghost
there.
in the graveyard.
So we got a suspicious vehicle call, but there's something else, because I text Cole that night when we were out, and he said, "Are you aware, Mayor, that we technically, and maybe John, you can correct us if he was wrong, but that we don't have a curfew. We've always kind of said our curfew is 11 o'clock." But they couldn't find any ordinance to refer to, because it would be ideal in those kind of locations, those kind of times, because it was past 11 o'clock to say, cemeteries close at 11, you're not allowed to be in here. There's probably not a lot of business reason to be in the cemetery past 11 o'clock unless you're looking for...
The gates stay open 24/7. The only time we lock the gates is on Halloween.
But ultimately, we had to leave him there. And Officer Danielson said that he had someone in a park, that he said the park is closed. He said, "I actually had someone challenge me on it, and then I couldn't find an ordinance that I could point to and say, yes, the park does close at 11. I think we've always believed it existed, but I don't gather that it does. And so that's probably something, one of these discussions to add, that maybe we want to look at is should our parks, I think like I said, I think for 8 years, we've always said parks close at 11 o'clock. That's when they close, but it sounds like it turns out we don't actually have anything enforceable.
Well, and in that scenario, it gives the police an enforcement issue to either cite someone but right now there's nothing that, and we are aware of the game. It's an issue of how do you stop every car that comes into the cemetery and ask them if they're playing the game or not playing the game.
Is it youth?
No, it's actually the people that we've seen are adults.
It's like, these people in their 50s and 60s doing this.
Yes, and so it's only after you observe them for a period of time that you then figure out that they're, because we get a lot of traffic in the cemetery that's coming to visit grave sites. But it's not until you watch a certain car for a period of time that then you figure out that they're playing the game. But
and I don't want to overreach either, but maybe curfew hours would be one, because maybe people just aren't noticing during the day. Maybe they're playing it during the day, but of course the calls that come in are because of suspicious vehicles at night. Yep. And maybe that curfew also includes something to say that, I mean, there's a reverence that comes with the cemetery that should be respected. Maybe visitation to the cemetery is. Well, of course, when you say that, then there are people who I think reverently walk, and I don't know that they're really being intrusive, so do you really want to keep them out? And that becomes but curfew, I think, both in the cemetery and parks is probably something, unless the council has any objections, that I think we all thought was written somewhere. Turns out maybe it's not, and I think the police would appreciate, there's nothing they can, so that guy ultimately, I mean, it was windy, and I'm thinking, all the things to do on a windy night. But there was nothing really to do to ask him to leave. Just, he said, "Yep, I'm here, this is what I'm doing." Okay, and that was it. So.
Anyway,
And they're not being destructive.
No.
It's just, I don't know how it works because I've not played it, but I gather when you're going for your portal, there's times that they rapidly accelerate or that they're trying to chase around, and I don't think looking at your phone and driving is a good idea anyway, but let alone the cemetery where the streets are, some of them are just wide enough for one car. Can you imagine? I mean, the first time we have someone run into a headstone or cause some damage because they're looking at their phone while driving, it just doesn't seem like a good.
Yeah, exactly.
At nighttime.
Imagine coming into the middle of this conversation, portals accelerating in the night in the cemetery, picking up arms. can't stalk dead people, can you? I don't know if it's a bad problem. Hey, I have a question. What is it, when this council votes upon something that's not on the agenda, is that okay to do? Or do items have to be on the agenda to be voted on?
That's a good question, because I think we've, in the past, thought if something comes up, like a discussion comes up right now, and we say, let's give staff some direction, usually we have a Open and Fair Meetings Act training that we do, that we will probably schedule in one of our upcoming meetings. I believe the action, but I'm not certain, because I think we've done it both ways. I think in the past we've said, well, can we talk about that? And probably in hindsight, I believe the rule or the statute says that you can't take any action on an item that's not listed on the agenda. That being said, I'm certain we've done it in the past, probably more on more insignificant items, like, well, why don't we just take a motion to give staff direction to move that, maybe not some rapidly changing items, but my understanding is that we can't take a vote on an item that's not listed on the agenda.
Well, specifically, I guess I mean, going back, I felt a little bit broadsided that I saw pickleball on the agenda, but I didn't see $100,000 we're asking for on the agenda. And then we voted that to agree for it. And also, I asked in last council when I was teleconferencing in that we could take a vote to get a consensus of the council so that people knew where we all sat on the tree cleanup. And I was told by you that no, it can't be done. But that's not the case in the past, though. There's times when we have voted on things. So that's, I guess, where some of the confusion comes into play for me as the new guy, that we have voted on things, and then I was blatantly told no, and I watched the tapes, and I've heard Councilmember Page say, let's just move on, and then you guys shot me down, and I was in California at Disneyland with my family. So I'm a little confused, to be honest. At what point is the discretion of what we allow to be voted on and not voted on?
My vote would be we all follow the rule, and particularly if it's in statute.
So are you willing to repent that we haven't followed the rule?
Well, yeah. Well, that's
I'm not
actually,
suggesting we don't follow the rule.
well, that was going to actually be part of my report, because we had, Mr. Robinson had talked about rules, and I did want to point out that we do have rules of procedure. I think there's 5 of them. One of them has the state code in it, but they're pretty general, that you talk about decorum generally and civility and a couple of other things. I don't have it memorized yet, but read through it. But it's short enough that I could memorize it, in a day.
Which topic are you on again? Are you on the
So this is
voting
just,
or the-
this is councilman reports.
Oh.
So I was just wanted to address that briefly in my report, that,
I
'cause it's,
wasn't done, actually, but, if you're going on to another topic, sorry.
okay, okay, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we also voted on, in March 31st's meeting, we voted on what it takes for a council member to get information, and that if it's over 2 hours, then, it needs to be this. If it's under 2 hours, it needs to be that. That wasn't on the agenda at all. So, I'm sorry, Garn, you're a rookie like me, so I'm going to defer over here to a couple of these veterans over here. Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, I can't tell you for a certainty. In times past, I don't know what the clear-cut rule is.
Looked into it, and if it's not on the agenda, you can't take action. I've actually spoken with staff, and I choose not to single out the staff, but.
Yeah, we've taken action on, to me, if we're having a discussion like in council member reports, and we have something that needs some clear direction, but we say, well, this is a council member report item, and we want to give staff some clarity on the issue, but we can't vote to give some clarity or at least draw some.
So just showing the public where we stood on the tree issue isn't just a clarity thing? You weren't here, so in all due fairness to you.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that item, it could qualify.
I think it was more of a direction that was given in that particular case.
What's that, Chris?
I think that was more a direction that was given by the council I think there was a
On the
consensus.
on the 2 hour thing?
On the debris one we were talking about just 2 weeks ago.
I didn't see anything. I heard, let's move on, and it was moved on, and then it was deliberately said
there was a
by
lengthy discussion on that.
pro tempore
on that
that
particular
we cannot
item.
vote on that. We can't make a decision
And
on that.
I want to address as I think the pickleball that you mentioned initially is a different situation. You may or may not recall, but back in, don't know, it was February or something like that, as a part of the council member reports, I had mentioned that there was a group that was interested in pickleball and interested in looking to bring pickleball courts to Kaysville, and they were forming a committee to try to raise money for that, and that on a future council meeting, they would be coming back to report on that and to request support from the council. That was a council member report.
We just didn't know it was in the form, I didn't know it was in the form of $100,000. I just thought
Okay, well,
help was.
that was.
And I'm not arguing that issue.
Well, that item was then on the agenda. They got themselves on the agenda. So any item that is on the agenda can involve some actionable item. That's my understanding of the.
I'm just saying 100K, and then, and then we voted on the 2 hour. We don't need to spend all night on it, it's fine.
I would recommend, let's have someone come refresh us. The league teaches it for free. They come to council meetings all the time and give this, and then we can ask these very directed questions. I mean, I wasn't here if it was a clarification on direction. That's always been my position. I admit maybe it's been wrong, but to say, if instead of saying, well, we're unclear on something, let's wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on how many Thursdays in the month we have, before we can give direction. Those kind of directional motions and votes have always been okay in my mind. But I'm
talking
certainly
about 2 different types of votes. So I'm talking about a flat-out vote on the way to get information for a council member. That was a vote. It was on record. And then, $100,000 wasn't quite in the agenda. Now, you always get concerned with me if I don't have enough information given to you beforehand on the agenda. I felt a little bit broadsided over the $100,000. It's just a point. So,
just a point of clarification, I don't think we voted to spend $100,000 on pickleball
we
courts.
committed. Yeah, it's a done deal.
What we voted on was their goal is to raise $100,000. They stated that was their goal. They were asking for our support in attempting to match that. Would we match that to help construct?
I didn't mean to debate this out, fellas.
I want to make sure that we're clear, though. I think it's important that we have clarity, because I think you're stipulating that we just voted and give $100,000. That's not technically true. We voted to give support to their effort, that when they raise their, whatever amount they raise, and another council member report that I have tonight is that they're actually at, in the bank, over $33,000, with a sizable contribution from Lifetime Products coming to almost get them to $45,000 at this point, or over $45,000. So they're almost halfway to their stated goal. But the motion that we made, or that we approved, was that we would work with them. I don't remember the exact language of the motion, but it was to match their donation contribution in the form of, whether that's sweat equity, whether that's we work in that, or cash as well, some combination thereof. That was my
recollection. So it wasn't a hard cash amount. It was
correct.
Like, however we can be creative in helping out and supporting, and it could include some cash, but we didn't set a
cool. Well, and then whatever the amount or the in-kind donation is from the city's behalf, I guess my point is that we agreed to $100,000 in-kind, Benjamins, Hondos, whatever. We agreed to that in kind. It just wasn't beforehand. I'm just saying, I'll be honest, I feel like there's a double standard. I feel like 2 weeks ago, I asked for a simple, hey, can we take a vote on the trees? And it was, no, let's move on. So that's enough. It's enough on that.
Just a question.
I'd like to say, I think that we also, councilmember reports, I think it'd be a good idea if we took a look at some of the older guys in the city and figured out a way for the guys who've given their whole entire life to us. Now I get, you're trying to work towards retirement and you stay in that groove. I mean, but what about the guys who have got busted hips, busted backs, busted shoulders, and guys who have kind of been, there's some examples of this where they're within minutes of retiring or qualifying for retiring. When I say minutes, I mean a couple years. And they've begged and said, look, can I do something else? I'll take a pay cut. You can cut me down big time. And they're told, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing else you can do. And they have to buy their way out of their retirement. There's no names that need to be had here. I just want to mention that. When these guys start to wear down, maybe we have a deceleration program for them when they're, when they're getting high 40s, early 50s. Not so much these guys. They're all right, They're not turning wrenches and jumping into ditches, but, we got to take care of them too. But, some of these hardworking guys that we have that, and I know how it is. My back's busted in three different spots in the lower L5 area, and my neck is slipped out. So I know how it is, And these guys are like, "Hey, man, I've given my all here, and I'm like 25 out of 30 years towards retirement, and what do I do now?" So, just a passing comment for a future day, kind of like you guys had your run of future ideas. I'd like to throw that in there. I think it's a valid point to try and take care of some of these guys that have done that. Another note, we talked, I recall it was brought up about this painting that we're putting in the police station. It's going to be wonderful, I'm sure, but this talks, was the painting 20 grand or 30 grand? Does anyone know?
20,000.
But then we paid 10,000, right?
No.
It was all Zion's.
So, okay.
Zions Bank donated for that. Zions Bank donates for a lot of stuff in our community.
Yeah, they do. The Simmons family is amazing, actually, anyway, but related to them, but cool, super. I thought there was a comment that there was $10,000 on the claims.
There was, and I'll offer that clarification. When the recommendation or the idea was put forward that maybe a police painting could be offered, Mr. Hawkins met with us and talked about what that would look like. We indicated that we didn't feel like it would be appropriate to use taxpayer dollars for it, and said, let's look at some possible contributions. I was in an unrelated meeting with Scott Anderson, who's the president of Zions Bank, and told him of the idea, and he said, "I would love to just pay for it. How about we pay the $20,000 to have it commissioned?" And he was willing to do that. We invoiced them over a year ago, and they paid the invoice in full. So we have had their $20,000 for over a year, is when they made their payment. So we've been holding on to their cash. So as Mr. Hawkins, and in the painting, we're trying to put together logistics, but ideally we unveil it prior to the 4th of July. I've not seen it. I've seen the outline of what it looks like, including a nice in the background, a little bit of water shooting out of a fire, your float. It's actually really quite cool the way he's got it aligned, but we hope to have something unveiled. Now, does that mean that we'll have no costs incurred as part of that? The cost for the painting is $20,000. That's what Zions has given it. We will incur some cost to mount it on the wall. I'd recommend that we have some kind of raised plexiglass, since it's in a public, so that somebody can't just hit it with something. That may be a cost. And also the idea, because Mr. Hawkins is also selling with the rights for duplication, my gut tells me there's going to be several in the community that say, that is really cool. I would love to have a duplication of that. I think the official word is giclée, where they take an image of the painting and reproduce it on canvas. I don't think that's something the city would pay for, but we could be an avenue that if someone said, whatever the cost is for that, I would like to buy a copy. So I think we'll have some incidental costs associated with it, but it'll be, and we'll probably have some kind of an unveiling and buy some punch and cookies or something and invite the public to come see it. But Zions did pay for the entire cost of it in advance up front, and we've had their funds for
which means
at least since January of last year.
On the claims, that was a check using their funds to pay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so I didn't finish my thought there. So when Chad gave us an update as to where he was, I asked the question and said, "What do you normally do in these situations?" Been working on this for a little while, and he's had other projects that have had to, and he said, "I usually will ask for half up front." And we said, "Well, we've had Zion's money now for a year or more than a year. We can certainly, if that's something you normally do, then that would be appropriate." And that's, so the remaining $10,000 that he's paid upon completion has already been prepaid as well.
Sweet. I'd just like to add that, earlier I stated I've kind of got involved in what I'm doing about 5 years ago. And I just want to say, on behalf of myself, that I started coming to city council meetings years ago. I understand how you two feel. I understand how you feel, ma'am, and your children. I see the looks on your faces. I understand it, but would you please understand that I have felt the same way you have felt about past councils? And am I not entitled to feel that? Am I not entitled to what the experiences that I have been through? So I understand you, but perhaps there's a little bit more, that's going on that I see and have been frustrated with over the years. And I'm just trying to stand up and do what's right. I'm going to die here. I'm not going to leave. If you guys have something to say, you're more than welcome to say it back there. But, the issue you raised was kind of about the fire department. And, I like those guys too. There needs to be a deceleration plan for them too. Ma'am, you're shaking your head, but I know plenty of blue-collar people in town. No, I said, ma'am. Yeah. Okay, you know what you know, and I know what I know. You feel how you feel, I feel how I feel. I choose to respect how you feel. I'm not telling you guys how to act. Okay.
Let's just,
yeah.
Make this a personal.
Yeah, let's stick with the council member reports.
Then don't have him address us.
I really can't,
You can't control it.
well, that's not what I was going to say. The council, I mean, it's a governing body, and it's my job to do the best I can to keep the meeting in order, but certainly it's...
What does it take to call a private meeting?
Let's have it out in the open. We're full.
No, it's not about you. I'm tired of the complaints that I'm getting. I'm utterly tired of it. Not from you guys, not from you. Okay, but I'm tired of the complaints I'm getting. Contractors calling in using the worst four-letter word in the book about people on our payroll who are in this room mocking me. And they're tired of it. And they won't come forward about it because they say, I won't want to be blackballed over it. They say, I'll never have a friendly work environment in the city again if I do something about this. I know about all of them. They're being documented. Put your head down, okay? Because I'm being mocked, but how does it take to call a private meeting? Let's do it.
Mayor, I would like to say, though, that this is, my councilman report is, are you done? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Councilman.
thanks, Jake.
Thanks.
I'll rest.
That I think that's why it's important that we have, just like everything, we were talking about the data discussion again, that we continue to work on strengthening the rules of conduct, ethics, and the meeting training, for what's appropriate for motion, what's not.
That needs to apply to staff too when we do that. It won't just be to us.
Yeah,
We're elected. Staff needs to learn how to behave with the public too. So when we do go through with this, and I'm more than willing to do it, this will apply to staff too.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think there should be, ethics for staff and for the city council, but we do, as elected officials, represent the community, and we should have the highest level of the utmost fidelity and the very best behavior and set the example for everyone else. And I think that having some rules that are a little more specific, that apply to everyone equally, they certainly don't single any one council person out. And I think, as I've looked, I haven't done an exhaustive research, but just to get an idea of what some other communities do, they do have a lot more specific rules of conduct. I think it's important that we do follow those, and that we maybe point out, and if it's particularly egregious,
we've covered that, I think, in our previous discussions, and we will have that as an upcoming.
No, and I guess I just wanted to point out that we would be working on that too, because we didn't really have it on our list, but we would be working on having some more detailed rules of conduct.
And
So
when we implicate it, are you going to stop telling me on the phone to go to hell with your tirades with me? I mean, it's got to apply to everybody. Yeah, I might be vocal, and I don't think any of us are here to be controlled. Sorry. But
yeah, I think it applies to everyone equally, Councilman Adams. I do.
Mr. Garn, you have a report?
I do have, yes. So the one thing I was going to say, I need to get back. I have an idea, but we did some great things with City Council through March, and I need to sort of reset that a little bit. And I think what would be good to do, we had some excellent events. I think they were very engaged, but I'd like to bring them a little bit more, because they are a council into the council, and maybe have them attend some meetings and be prepared. We have the packet before the meeting, and sort of have their input a little bit, maybe even, I haven't thought through it fully enough to really represent it, but that's kind of where I'm thinking next we ought to go, is to involve them in the actual issues that we're facing with the city. And so that's my report.
That's great. You've done a great job with the city council thus far, though, so certainly don't sell yourself short. It's been great.
Sure.
Any other council member reports? Hearing none, we'll move to minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes dated April 21st and
Actually, I think
three. Thank you. For our special meeting on April 21st, our regular meeting on April 21st, and the regular meeting on May 5th. If you've had a chance to review it, welcome a motion for approval.
I've read through the minutes. They seem to reflect the general tenor of everything that I recall happening in the meeting. So I would make a motion that we approve all 3 sets of minutes from April 20, the 2 from the 21st and the 1 from the 5th.
I have a concern.
Thank you. Let me just call for order on. We have a motion. Is there a second? And then we'll have discussion.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Snell, a second by Councilmember Garn. Discussion, Mr. Adams. Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, the concern, April 21 in the end.
This is the regular
page
meeting,
11,
not the special meeting.
Yes, Chris. So second paragraph. This was regarding legal fees. You all remember, on behalf of me. Councilmember Snell stated that it is Councilmember Adams' responsibility to pay the legal invoice incurred by Councilmember Adams. He noted that the offer to pay the claim in the closed-door meeting was made to cover legal expenses in good faith up to a certain amount. I have a serious issue with this because we're conflicting records. As you know, I've listened to these records very extensively, and this conflicts with the actual record. So I don't know what to do here. Do we need to table these and allow staff to go, maybe let Maria open up that and go prove it out? Because that conflicts. It was not up to a certain amount. There was no bar set. There's no, so I just don't want 2 years down the road to, you know, somebody crack all this out and say, hey, these records are conflicting with one another.
Well, for one thing, there isn't minutes of the closed-door meeting, and
Well,
I have
there's
also,
a DVD of it, so
yeah,
I'm
correct,
saying.
and I've listened to it. And
Oh, you did listen to it?
I did.
And what was your finding?
I listened to it before we had this discussion back on the 21st.
Oh,
I
you
think.
Mm,
Or maybe no.
Well,
No,
you
it
didn't
was since
reveal that then.
Sorry. It was actually since then. But I think my recollection, and having reviewed that, is that this was this accurately reflects. Either way, for the 21st, the meeting on the 21st, that accurately reflects what I said.
Oh, yes, Chris, I wouldn't argue with that. I'm saying it conflicts with, oh, you've listened to this meeting, you're not in the private meeting?
No, I listened to the private meeting.
Okay, yeah, I'm just saying these minutes conflict with the private meeting record.
I disagree with you on that.
You actually heard someone say in that meeting that up to $1,000? You heard that?
Okay.
But in this meeting on March 21st, does this accurately reflect what was stated? Because the minutes aren't rather someone states something, and I'm not saying
But if it's inaccurate.
Whether someone says something accurate or inaccurate in a public meeting, the minutes reflect what was stated, not necessarily what is a debate over what is accurate. So I think the minutes as stated are
The minutes
if
as
this
they
is what
are
was stated.
accurately reflect what was said
And
that
then
night.
what you're saying now.
I said it then, and I'm saying it now. It's just not what's on the tape. Chris, I don't.
The options here would
Can you and I listen to the tape together, Chris?
The options would be to table the minutes, to offer a substitute motion amending what was said, and we could take a vote on that. Or we currently have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes as drafted. So your 3 options are to table them and take further action if you'd like, or table one set of minutes to adopt as outlined, or to adopt with an amendment. Those are the 3 options the council has.
Adopt them with an amendment.
Well, yeah, because this is accurate.
A change. This
It's
is accurate to what I said, but
it's conflicting with
But
city record.
But that's why you can state your concern, and then what your concern is tonight.
Oh, can I just,
will
yeah, if this can
reflect
go on
in
the record.
minutes. Yes.
This will go on the record tonight. Thanks, Maria. If you'll note that tonight then, and if I'm cornered, it is what it is, so.
I would
So it will
also
be
like to mention,
in
in the
minutes,
context
just
of the
not these
minutes,
ones, it'll be in the
that I also listened to both closed meetings again, and I also agree that, with Councilman Snell, that this set of records is not in conflict with the closed meeting records.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as outlined. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
no, sorry.
Okay,
The
and
other-
then any opposed? That was a
Yeah,
nay.
the other meeting,
I'm sorry, you have more to discuss on the minutes?
May 5th, 2016. Says,
let-
on page 6, Councilmember Adams is appreciative that Kaysville City can assist our citizens and noted that with the help of a contractor, cleanup could take place within a week's time. It's just not, that wasn't, I know my phone call was going in and out. I've been told by people it was hard to hear me, so I totally understand that. That was not my sentiment. If I could
Okay,
move
wanna
to
correct it?
change that,
What
yeah.
would you rather it say?
Just,
So let me do this if we can. We voted,
we
but
did.
we're gonna vote again on just the 21st minutes.
Or
Okay,
the
so,
fifth.
so
The fifth.
please offer,
Cinco de
yeah, I
Mayo.
know. I'm gonna have you, I'm gonna
sorry.
recommend we take a motion on the 21st minutes so we can reflect that vote, because I'm guessing you may offer a motion with an amendment, and that vote might be different. So I would welcome, so someone please make a motion to adopt the April 21st minutes, as we already did, but just the April 21st minutes as drafted. That was your original motion? Will you make it again?
I will make it again and exclude the 5th.
All right,
from my
thank you.
motion.
Still a second?
Yes.
All in favor for the April 21st minutes only, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Nay.
opposed?
nay.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. Now to the May 5th minutes. Councilmember Adams, on May, you mentioned the 6th, so would you like to offer a motion for adoption of these minutes with a change?
Yes.
To your statement on page 6.
Yeah, I offer a motion to adopt these minutes with a change to my statement on page 6.
Being-
Do you want the verbiage now, Maria? I would say on the fly, I know I was appreciative, up to our citizens, and noted that it would be, I guess I noted that it would be responsible to think of more ways to where we could have done that more economically. I know I was going in and out on the phone call, so I apologize.
So appreciate that the Kaysville City can assist our citizens, and noted that more time should be given to invest, or to look at cleanup options more efficiently, or something.
Yeah, that sounds
think
like
that's
where I
what-
was at. That's it.
Is that clear, Maria? Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilmember Adams and a second by Councilmember Lee for approval of the minutes with the amendment on page 6, as Councilmember Adams has outlined. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Voting is unanimous. Next on our agenda is approval of claims. We have one set of claims dated May 18th at 4:54 PM in the amount of $1,384,780.01.
I just had one question on it. It's on page 22. And it's, I don't know, it's Young Chevrolet, and it was for almost $8,000 for labor, parts, and repair. Do you know what that was for? Page 22.
Page 22, Young Chevrolet, 5257.
That seems pretty big for a,
Will you speak in the microphone, Dean?
That was a park vehicle that was hit by a private party, and
okay.
it's been in the repair shop for the last month or so, and the reimbursement comes from the private party's insurance.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So we're paying it up front and then getting reimbursed from their insurance carrier?
Was that the one you were in, Cole? I actually passed it that morning, so I
Cole finally got his truck back.
yeah. I was glad you're okay.
After
It was
night-
your truck? Oh, it was your truck?
Yeah.
After $8,000, do you really want it back? I don't know.
I just have a concern on a King and King invoice. April 21st, we had that meeting. It's been discussed in here tonight, about there was a meeting afterwards. But the following day, on King and King's invoices, on April 20, you don't have this. I'll be glad to hand it around.
Is it in these claims?
It's, I don't know. Should be.
I mean, is that invoice in these claims that we're approving tonight, is my question?
Is there King? I thought, well, I'm not sure.
I don't remember seeing a King.
Is it lumped together?
Well, sorry, I'll bring it up after the vote then.
Okay, we'll take action on these set of claims, and then under the claims item, we can address past claims if you'd like, if you'd like to do that, if that's
Cool.
okay. All right, so if you've had a chance to review, had the clarification on the young Chevrolet, I'll welcome a motion for approval of the claims dated May 18th.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Garner, second by Councilmember Snell. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Voting is unanimous. We're still on claims. Mr. Adams.
This invoice is from King and King, dated on May 4th, 2016, due on 6/3/2016, so my apologies, it's probably still in the queue. But on April 22nd, the day following the meeting that rolled over till 1 in the morning here in this building, it says that review documents, TC, I've learned that means telephone call, State Archives Ombudsman, research conference with John Thacker, $270, April 25th, 2016. Research, telephone call, ombudsman, work on legal opinion, conference with John Thacker, $275. 4/26/16, complete legal opinion, conference with John Thacker, $225. What's an ombudsman? John, what was that you were researching there?
That was, an ombudsman is a state officer that gives advice on how to handle matters that need to be properly handled. There's a property rights ombudsman. There's a grandma ombudsman. Different kinds of advisors, if you will, on how to handle issues, and they give opinions and advice.
Don't they also sometimes act in a almost judicial role if there's two disputes between property owners? For example, a property rights ombudsman may act as the person who hears both sides and renders a decision.
That's correct.
It's like a mediator.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I was looking for.
Could you explain to me what you were researching that for, John?
For personnel issues.
Regarding,
We probably can't divulge.
Right, personnel
what
matters.
if it's regarding me and I give you permission?
What?
What if it's regarding me and I give you my permission to divulge it right now?
Permission regarding you?
I believe it's regarding me. I acted unknowingly in the 21st. I think my theory here is that you did that researching me, John.
It was not researching you.
So who was, there was someone else, the very next day after I really have never heard the word ombudsman, but I've looked into it, and it seems like perhaps it could have been perceived I was acting as an ombudsman for those folks that were here with the flooding issues. So
it was not.
I'll ask you in private then. And
it was not that. It was not related to that at all.
So this is just sheer coincidence that a council member acts as an ombudsman potentially, and the next day, throughout the next 3 days, we spend almost $800 researching ombudsmans. There's nothing to do, you just, yes or no, it was absolutely nothing to do with me at all, in any way, shape, or form. That's a totally open-ended question.
It was nothing to do with what was occurred on the 21st in that meeting. No.
I asked specifically if it was something to do with me.
No.
Okay, how do we go about finding out in private? I guess in a closed-door meeting we can talk about this?
can,
Okay.
It sounds like it had zero to do with Councilman Adams. The reason for you to go and talk with the state ombudsman in the, for whichever division that was, I don't remember, had nothing to do with Councilman Adams and his actions on the 21st.
Oh, you went and spoke with the state ombudsman? That hasn't come out, Chris. What are you referring to?
That's what I.
No, he's
That's what
trying
I.
to clarify it.
I don't think it had anything with. I don't think you ever acted in the role of an ombudsman, other than I guess you acted on behalf of and made a presentation on behalf of or in conjunction with the neighbors from the Sunset Equestrian. But I wouldn't classify that as an ombudsman. That's an official title in for a number of positions in the state, as John has mentioned.
You you said he went and spoke with the state ombudsman?
No, you read that there's something about
I think Chris understood you to say that John went and met with.
or that they counseled with the office of the ombudsman or something like that, maybe remotely. I don't know if they went and talked or anyway, they spoke with the state ombudsman office about
It was
personnel and
telephone
internal,
call is what Councilmember Adams said.
right.
about an internal matter related to undetermined personnel,
Right.
not involving Councilman Adams.
Right.
Is that correct? So that's.
But I would say.
I don't know what it's about.
Do you know
either.
about it, or
No,
Chris?
I have no idea about it.
Oh.
I'm just trying to encapsulate what I think John is saying.
Good. That's fine. That's,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Next on our agenda is review of calendar. You have before you a 3-month calendar. Couple things we just point out. On Monday, the 30th of May, excuse me, let me back up here. On the 21st, we have Saturday the 21st, the Kaysville Veterinary Clinic is having their open house from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And at 11 a.m., the Daughters of Utah Pioneers are going to officially turn over the cabin with a program at 11 a.m. And I believe the public, I think Mona left, I believe the public is invited to that. And the Daughters of Utah Pioneers always put on a great event, and they will ceremoniously hand over the keys, which will be great. So I appreciate their efforts. On Monday, the 30th of May, we have our annual Memorial Day program, which is held up at the cemetery. Always a wonderful program, put on a kind of a patriotic program to honor those who have served. Our keynote speaker will be Colonel David Lyons, who is the commander of the 388th Fighter Wing, and he will be addressing us, as well as the Davis High School Drumline and the Farmington Legion, American Legion Farmington Post 47? 27, all right, well, there's a 7
I'm
there.
going to say the time.
Is at 10 a.m. at the cemetery. And if you've not been before, you should definitely come because it is.
Just staying in May.
It is a
Yep.
great thing. Oh, that's right.
We have our budget meeting on the 28th.
And then the 28th, and I wasn't here, but I'm sorry, did you say 7 a.m. on a Saturday? Bravo.
And that was
That
a
was-
big compromise.
Wow. Larry wanted it early.
That's right, let's get it done.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. And then looking forward into June, Arts and Music in the Park on Saturday, the 11th of June. We're starting a little later this year. What time, Cole? Starting at 2 o'clock, and we'll be complete with a movie at 8:30 in the park as well. And we got a lot of things on this budget now. On this calendar. Business Alliance Network meeting, Boondocks on June 7th at 10:30 to 12:30. Youth Fishing Day Camp, the 14th and 15th at, where is that held? These are more things we've ever had on here. That's great. And then on the 18th, Saturday the 18th, Smith's Marketplace is holding a primary children's hospital fundraiser in the parking lot of the marketplace. We'd welcome you to come. And then our Independence Day celebrations are coming up. Well, more details available on our website at KaysvilleCity.com. Any other items for the calendar? If not, I'd welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I think they got it.
Could we have a motion and a second to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
It's only 10:20.
Smells like banana bread.
Does anyone want this booklet from Hamilton? We give it to staff if anyone wants to review it.
Yeah, probably give it to staff.
Or Susan.
I know we're still recording.
Like it?
You want that, Jake? Do you want that booklet? Metering stuff?
Catch up.
Take a look at it. Too bad we don't want to reach on this.